Among the 9 planets considered in Vedic tradition, the moon represents the core of human consciousness, the mind, emotions, sensitivity, receptivity, and the maternal energy that nurtures life. Unlike outer planets, the moon is extremely personal and changeable, reflecting the internal tides of our emotional experience, just as it reflects sunlight to illuminate the night. When we embark on a deep analysis of the moon's placement in different nakshatras, lunar mansions, we get a remarkably nuanced understanding of a person's mental and emotional blueprint. The moon's position in a birth chart governs not only our emotional responses but also our psychological resilience, memory, intuition, and how we relate to both our inner world and the people around us. It's no surprise then that ancient seers placed great importance on the moon while reading a natal chart. In fact, Vedic astrology gives the moon greater significance in many predictive systems, such as moon charts and dasha predictions. This is because, in practical terms, our experiences of life, joy, or sorrow are processed through the lens of our mind, which is governed by the moon. When the moon is placed strongly in a horoscope, especially in friendly signs like Taurus, its exaltation point, or in beneficial houses like the 4th or 7th, it bestows a person with emotional stability, strong intuition, inner peace, and an ability to care for others. One of the most profound impacts of a well-placed moon is seen in the individual's relationship with their mother. A nurturing, spiritual, or emotionally intelligent mother often serves as the first teacher, instilling foundational values and a moral compass that guides the individual through life. Conversely, afflictions to the moon, due to malefic aspects, conjunctions, or debilitation, can result in emotional instability, confusion, depression, or even emotional detachment. Many violent historical figures had severely afflicted moons, which reflected their lack of empathy and emotional coldness. Yet the moon is not merely about emotional sensitivity. It governs mental adaptability, how we absorb experiences, and most importantly, how we process pain and learn from it. 2 people may go through the same failure or heartbreak, but their response and growth will be different if their moon placements vary. A strong moon enables a person to introspect, learn, and move forward, while a weak or afflicted moon causes people to repeat mistakes, stay stuck in self-doubt, or cling to past trauma. The moon is also the most dynamic planet in astrology. Unlike the sun, which is consistent in its light, the moon goes through a monthly waxing and waning cycle. For approximately 14 days, it grows larger, waxing, and for the next 14, it shrinks, waning. This cyclical pattern reflects the emotional rhythms we experience. When the moon is waxing, it is considered benefic, and activities started during this time have a better chance of growth and success. This is why important festivals or auspicious undertakings in ancient cultures often coincided with the new moon or the beginning of the waxing cycle. An important concept in Vedic astrology is the maturity age of planets, which indicates when a planet starts yielding its most evolved and positive results. For the moon, this maturity age is 24 years. By this age, a person is generally more emotionally balanced and self-aware. They've usually experienced some level of emotional intensity or volatility by this point, and the lessons brought by the moon begin to integrate into a more stable psychological framework. A matured moon can help an individual make better decisions, form deeper relationships, and handle emotional crises with more grace. From the perspective of physical appearance, the moon governs nourishment, both emotional and bodily. The quality of nurturing a person receives from birth directly affects not only emotional health but also the physical development of the body. The moon, in conjunction with its sign, house placement, nakshatra, and aspects, shows how well the person receives and processes nourishment. This brings us to the importance of studying the moon through the nakshatras, the 27 lunar constellations that form the backbone of Vedic astrology's predictive power. Each nakshatra reflects a different dimension of human nature, ranging from aggression and discipline to nurturing, creativity, and mysticism. When the moon is placed in a particular nakshatra, it flavors the mind with the symbolism, deity, and traits of that nakshatra. For example, moon in Ashwini nakshatra brings speed, spontaneity, and healing instincts. Moon in Revati bestows spiritual depth, compassion, and imagination. Understanding moon in nakshatras is like unlocking the fine-tuned emotional and psychological DNA of a person. While the sign placement of the moon offers a broad overview of emotional disposition, the nakshatra tells us how that emotional nature expresses itself in behavior, dreams, fears, and ambitions. The nakshatra also governs areas such as intuition, creative instincts, hidden karmas, and the nature of the maternal influence in one's life. It's not merely about labeling traits, it's about understanding how each nakshatra molds the moon's energy into a specific emotional archetype. By understanding your moon's nakshatra, you are essentially learning the core of who you are, how you feel, how you connect, and what you truly need to feel emotionally whole. To accurately determine the moon nakshatra, it is essential to obtain your Vedic astrology horoscope. Should you require assistance in identifying your planetary placements, the provided link in the description can generate your personalized Vedic birth chart. With this context in mind, let's delve into the implications of having the moon in each of the 27 nakshatras. When the moon is placed in Ashwini Nakshatra, the mind becomes quick, assertive, and filled with a pioneering spirit. Ashwini is the very first nakshatra among the 27, and its position from 0 degrees 00 foot to 13 degree 20 of Aries places it fully within the fiery and bold sign of Aries. This nakshatra marks the beginning of everything, a new karmic cycle, a new venture, or the very first impulse to act. Consequently, individuals with moon in Ashwini Nakshatra tend to have a restless, energetic, and achievement-driven mind. They are not ones to sit back and wait for things to happen. They prefer to take initiative, often leading the way before anyone else even considers starting. The moon, which governs our emotional landscape and mental patterns, finds itself influenced here by a unique blend of fiery Aries, mystical Ketu, and the divine healing energy of Ashwini Kumars. The Ashwini Kumars, twin horse-headed deities, are known as the physicians of the gods. This imbues the moon here with a strong desire to heal, restore, and bring help swiftly. Therefore, individuals born with this placement often find themselves drawn to healing professions, not only in the physical sense like medicine or surgery but also in spiritual, metaphysical, and alternative healing practices. Their problem-solving abilities are often intuitive, fast, and effective, with a natural talent to offer remedies, advice, or comfort to others in distress. Because the nakshatra is ruled by Ketu, the south node of the moon, there is a strong karmic and spiritual component to this placement. Ketu is associated with past lives, detachment, mysticism, and a desire for liberation. When the moon is in Ashwini, it can suggest that the person's mental wiring is linked to karmic memories from previous lives, and they may come into this life with natural skills or knowledge, especially related to healing, herbs, or other esoteric subjects. The mind works in an instinctive, non-linear manner, and their spiritual inclinations may be innate rather than acquired. The most defining trait of this moon placement is speed and spontaneity. The symbolism of the horse's head, the ruling animal of a male horse, and the zodiac sign Aries all point toward motion, vitality, and courage. These individuals are mentally alert and quick to act, often making decisions rapidly and with great confidence. This can also be a double-edged sword, as the same impulsiveness that makes them trailblazers can also lead to rash decisions or lack of foresight. It's not uncommon for them to leap into new ventures without fully evaluating the consequences, mentally always jumping ahead to what's next. Emotionally, moon and Ashwini individuals are youthful, dynamic, and often unpredictable. They are full of life and can be charismatic and playful, making them quite popular socially. Yet, they may find it difficult to stay still or commit to one thing for too long. Their enthusiasm is infectious, but they often need constant movement, stimulation, and challenge. Emotionally, they are not the most contemplative or patient. They want quick emotional resolutions and may struggle to process deeper emotional pain unless they learn to slow down and introspect. Stillness can feel uncomfortable to them, and restlessness often pushes them toward new challenges or escapades. The influence of Ketu, a headless shadow planet, adds an element of otherworldliness and detachment. These individuals may, at times, experience a kind of emotional dissociation, where they feel emotionally disconnected or find it difficult to articulate their feelings. This disconnection is often not rooted in coldness, but in a desire to go beyond the surface of emotions into something subtler, deeper, or even metaphysical. Their mind may be wired to seek higher truths rather than get stuck in mundane emotional drama. Interestingly, because Ashwini is the nakshatra of beginnings, these individuals are often the initiators in relationships, friendships, or ventures. They thrive on the thrill of starting something new and are excellent at giving life to fresh ideas. Maintaining long-term consistency can sometimes be a challenge unless other stabilizing influences are present in the chart. The mental energy of Ashwini is forward-moving, competitive, and eager to win, making them thrive in environments where quick decision-making, courage, and initiative are valued. Another fascinating layer to this moon placement is its connection to dual or twin energies, as seen in the mythological identity of the Ashwini Kumars. This can create a duality in their personality. These individuals may oscillate between being deeply serious and unexpectedly humorous or lighthearted. They may be known for their twin-like emotional expressions, where they can switch moods rapidly or appear as if two minds are operating within them. This duality can also reflect in their career choices or interests, such as balancing a medical profession with spiritual pursuits or combining physical activity with intellectual or artistic hobbies. Many may feel a deep love for animals, or even pursue careers that involve animal care or alternative veterinary healing. The horse symbolism also fuels their passion for sports, martial arts, or physically intensive disciplines like yoga or dance. These are not sedentary minds. They process their emotions best through motion and activity. They might find meditation challenging in the traditional sense, but may discover moving meditation, such as walking in nature or martial arts, as their preferred form of spiritual grounding. In terms of family influences, the mother, being represented by the moon, may have had a dynamic, healing, or spiritual role in their life. The mother may also have been someone who encouraged independence or perhaps had a fast-paced, action-oriented personality herself. The early environment might have instilled a sense of urgency or a strong desire to be self-reliant from a young age. One cannot overlook the house placement of the moon, its aspects and conjunctions, and the dasha periods running in the individual's life. These layers will color how the Ashwini energy is expressed. For example, if the moon rules the 7th house, the native may seek partners with similar dynamic, fast-moving qualities. If it rules the 10th house, their career may revolve around speed, healing, or taking the lead in high-pressure environments. Overall, the moon in Ashwini Nakshatra creates a mind that is hungry for progress, thirsty for action, and constantly looking to lead, initiate, or heal. Their journey is about learning how to balance speed with wisdom, to slow down just enough to allow their natural healing powers, spiritual depth, and courageous heart to flourish in sustainable, meaningful ways. When the moon is placed in Bharani Nakshatra, the mind takes on an intense, transformative, and deeply creative nature. This is not a superficial creativity, rather, it's rooted in the ability to birth something new, meaningful, and often life-altering. Governed by Venus, influenced by the fiery and action-oriented sign of Aries, ruled by Mars, and presided over by the deity Yama, Bharani infuses the moon with a paradoxical combination of life and death, beauty and brutality, sensuality and spirituality. These opposing forces are constantly at play within the native's psyche, shaping a person who is passionate, emotionally intense, fiercely protective, and deeply drawn toward the mysteries of life. The name Bharani itself translates to bearing or to carry, referencing the womb, the primary symbol of this nakshatra. When the moon, representing the mind, emotions, mother, and memory, is placed in Bharani, it signifies a mind that gestates powerful ideas, desires, and transformations. Just like a child develops over time in the womb before being born, these individuals process their emotional experiences internally before manifesting them outwardly. Their inner world is rich and deeply personal. What emerges from it is often dramatic, transformative, and profound. Bharani's ruling deity, Yama, the god of death and dharma, plays a central role in shaping the mental tendencies of this nakshatra. Far from being only a symbol of mortality, Yama governs the journey between realms, the laws of karma, and the transition from one state of existence to another. Thus, people with moon in Bharani often find their thoughts circling around themes of mortality, rebirth, the afterlife, and spiritual justice. These aren't abstract ideas to them, they feel real and present. They may be drawn toward metaphysical and spiritual research, documentaries or books about reincarnation, near-death experiences, or karmic cycles. Even their dreams may carry vivid messages or take them into dark or mysterious realms, connecting them with the unseen side of existence. Their emotional life is rarely smooth. Much like the painful process of childbirth, which Bharani symbolically represents, these individuals often endure emotional suffering followed by profound inner growth. Their lives are marked by cycles of intense emotional experiences, betrayal, loss, separation, that force them to evolve, mature, and develop strength. There's often a theme of rebirth after emotional destruction. The pain they go through isn't meaningless. It acts as a catalyst for personal transformation, often opening them to deeper spiritual truths or inspiring them to help others who are suffering. Because Bharani exists entirely within Aries, there is a powerful infusion of Mars-driven qualities into the psyche. These individuals are courageous, quick to take emotional action, and may be blunt or even confrontational when dealing with emotional issues. Their feelings are intense, and they express them without much filter. There's a rawness and honesty in their emotional expression that can be both refreshing and intimidating. Venus, the nakshatra lord, adds artistic, sensual, and aesthetic layers to this energy, making them not just emotionally intense but sensual, charming, and passionate. There's a magnetism about them. They attract attention, even without trying. Their beauty may be striking, and they often possess a sexual energy that is palpable and hard to ignore. This sensual and sexual nature is a key theme in Bharani. Because its symbol is the female reproductive organ and it's ruled by Venus, individuals with moon here may have a mind that is preoccupied with sexuality, sexual identity, or intimate relationships. Early in life, They might feel confused, conflicted, or overly reserved about these aspects of themselves. As they mature, they become more expressive and explorative. There's a deep need to understand and embrace sexual power, but it can also lead to emotional entanglements if not handled with self-awareness. Some may even pursue careers in fields related to sexuality, from therapists and educators to performers, sex workers, or advocates for sexual health and freedom. Their maternal influence, represented by the moon, can be especially strong. The mother in such a native's life may have gone through deep transformations, emotional upheaval, or may have been a force of both love and pain. It's not uncommon for the individual to inherit intense emotional patterns from the mother, both the nurturing ability and the inner turmoil. Some may feel very protective of their mother, while others may have gone through painful detachment, creating a deep karmic imprint that they carry throughout life. On a psychological level, Moon and Bharani individuals possess a subconscious mind that is highly fertile and impressionable. What they absorb, whether beliefs, visuals, or traumas, gets embedded deeply into their psyche. This makes them incredibly powerful at manifesting through focused thought and emotion. Like planting a seed in fertile soil, once an idea is conceived in their mind, it grows steadily until it reaches fruition. This gives them remarkable potential in any creative or visionary field, whether that's writing, filmmaking, designing, or healing. They might also be drawn toward professions that involve birthing or nurturing, such as gynecology, childcare, midwifery, counseling, or fertility medicine. The influence of Yama also gives them an innate sense of righteousness and justice. Their sense of right and wrong is strong, and they can be extremely protective, especially of the vulnerable. When someone they love is wronged, their emotional response is fierce, even ruthless, much like the aggressive elephant energy associated with this nakshatra. This can make them powerful activists, warriors for a cause, or community protectors. The overall impact of Moon and Bharani depends greatly on the house placement of the moon, its lordship, aspects it receives, conjunctions, and the planetary period the individual is running. For example, if Moon in Bharani rules the 7th house and sits in the 5th, relationship dynamics may be closely tied to sexuality, emotional transformation, and possibly even fertility or children. If aspected by malefics like Saturn or Rahu, the emotional journey may be filled with delays, blocks, or intense karmic lessons. Overall, Moon in Bharani marks a mind that is rich with emotional depth, sensuality, and an unshakable instinct for transformation. These individuals aren't afraid to dive into the darkness within or around them because they intuitively understand that true beauty and strength emerge from pain and evolution. They carry within them the capacity to give birth to new realities, whether it be a child, an artwork, a movement, or a new version of themselves, rising again and again, stronger each time. When the moon is placed in Kritika Nakshatra, the emotional nature of the person takes on a piercing, fiery, and highly focused quality. Kritika spans across the zodiac signs of Aries, 26 degree 40 foot, to Taurus, 10 degree 00, governed by the dual energies of Mars, Aries, and Venus, Taurus, while the nakshatra itself is ruled by the sun. This unique combination gives rise to a mind that is sharp, determined, nurturing in a protective way, and deeply critical, with an innate drive for precision, perfection, and power. The core symbolism of Kritika lies in its name, which means to cut or to pierce. The sharp objects associated with this nakshatra, such as razors or knives, speak volumes about its energy. When the moon, which represents the mind, emotional patterns, the inner self, and the mother, is influenced by this cutting energy, it creates an individual whose mind can penetrate through complexity, analyze with accuracy, and act decisively. They are not passive thinkers. Their thoughts demand action. Their mind is wired to remove what is unnecessary and get to the core of the matter, often through emotionally intense experiences that sharpen their wisdom and clarity. Depending on the section of Kritika where the moon falls, Aries or Taurus, this nakshatra can show different shades of personality. In the Aries portion, which is governed by Mars, the native exhibits a bold, fiery, and action-oriented mental nature. They are ambitious and can be impulsive, often aiming to execute their plans swiftly and with authority. Their emotional energy is direct and aggressive. They don't hold back, and they say what needs to be said, often with a sharp tongue. This can make them brilliant debaters, critics, and protectors, but it can also mean that their words can wound, especially when they are emotionally charged. The Taurus section of Kritika is where the moon finds its exaltation at 3 degrees Taurus, making it the most emotionally stable, nurturing, and spiritually grounded part of this nakshatra. Here, the moon expresses itself in a more calculated, peaceful, and protective manner. These individuals are still sharp-minded, but their energy is more contained. They may be perfectionists when it comes to matters of wealth, security, family, and comfort, showing a deep emotional connection to what makes them feel safe. The mind here is precise and patient, less impulsive than the Aries section. There's an intense need for emotional and financial stability, and they are often willing to work tirelessly to achieve it. Another defining trait of Moon in Kritika is the critical and analytical nature of the mind. The person is rarely satisfied with superficiality. They want depth, accuracy, and order. Much like the process of cutting away impurities from a diamond, these individuals have a refining mindset. Whether it's perfecting their skills, correcting others, or dissecting concepts, they have an almost Virgo-like tendency to notice flaws and fix them. Their mind is their sharpest tool, capable of scrutinizing every detail. The deity Agni, the fire god, plays an important role in this nakshatra. Agni represents transformation, purification, and spiritual fire. Moon in Kritika brings about a desire to burn away emotional impurities and evolve into a purer state of being. These individuals are often drawn to fire rituals, cooking, candle making, or even professions involving fire like metallurgy or firefighting. More symbolically, they have a tendency to go through emotional purification, often passing through intense inner trials that help them emerge stronger and more focused. Their emotions can flare up suddenly like fire, and they may find it hard to hold back their anger or frustration unless other stabilizing influences are present in the chart. The mythology of Kartikeya, who was raised by the 7 Kritikas, symbolized by the 7 stars in the Pleiades, adds another profound layer to this nakshatra. Kartikeya, the warrior son of Shiva, was hidden away and nurtured secretly until he was ready to fulfill his divine purpose, to defeat the demons. This story signifies that Moon in Kritika individuals often experience a phase of secrecy, suppression, or intense preparation in their early life, particularly in the relationship with the mother or family. They may not be nurtured in a conventional way, or there may be themes of foster care, step-parenting, adoption, or emotionally distant nurturing. Like Kartikeya, they may rise to greatness once they pass through the required emotional transformation. This nakshatra is also heavily associated with protective energy. Individuals with Moon in Kritika tend to be defenders of truth, of justice, of the weak, or even of their own boundaries. If pushed, they can become fierce, even aggressive. But this aggression is rarely chaotic. It's purposeful, fueled by a deep sense of righteousness and clarity. They are emotional warriors, and their fire, once directed properly, can accomplish tremendous good. Moon in Kritika also brings strong digestive fire, both literally and metaphorically. Physically, they may have a quick metabolism, and many of them love cooking or working with sharp tools. Metaphorically, this means they can process information and emotions rapidly, digesting what others may take much longer to understand. But if their fire is not balanced, for instance, if afflicted by malefics like Saturn, Rahu, or Ketu, they may burn out, face emotional volatility, or develop tendencies toward criticism, irritability, and emotional overreaction. Professionally, they are suited for roles that require clarity, decision-making, and protection, such as lawyers, doctors, chefs, surgeons, military leaders, or public servants. They can also work well in foster care, child protection, investigative work, or any field that involves uncovering truth or working behind the scenes. The caretaking and cutting nature combined makes them excellent in fields like nursing, surgery, editing, healing, and education. Emotionally, these individuals often have to learn the balance between nurturing and cutting, when to protect and when to detach, when to care and when to let go. This balance is what eventually brings them emotional peace. Their journey often involves cutting ties with illusions, superficial attachments, or emotionally draining environments, and choosing to rise with clarity, strength, and purpose. Overall, the Moon in Kritika signifies a mind forged in fire, one that is capable of great courage, emotional purity, and a focused, perfection-seeking intellect. Whether in Aries or Taurus, Kritika brings the power to burn through darkness, reveal truth, and lead with fierce emotional clarity. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Rohini Nakshatra, the mind enters a realm of sensuality, emotional richness, artistic temperament, and magnetic attraction. Rohini, spanning from 10 degrees 00 foot to 23 degree 20 in Taurus, lies entirely within the most grounded and resource-oriented sign of the zodiac. Governed by Venus as sign lord and the moon as nakshatra lord, this nakshatra creates an ideal blend for the moon to express its full emotional potential. In fact, among all lunar mansions, Rohini is where the moon feels most at home, not just because it is exalted in Taurus, but because of the deep mythological and symbolic associations between the moon and this particular star. The mythological background of Rohini plays a major role in understanding how the moon behaves here. Rohini was the most beloved of the 27 wives of the moon, all nakshatras, and the moon chose to spend more time with her, leading to jealousy among the other sisters. This deep affection, almost obsession, of the moon for Rohini manifests in people with moon in Rohini as a strong emotional attachment to love, beauty, luxury, and affection. Such individuals crave deep emotional bonding, often leaning toward possessiveness and jealousy, especially in romantic relationships. Their emotional security is tightly interwoven with physical closeness and consistency in affection. Rohini's energy is deeply fertile, creative, and nurturing, represented by the symbol of an ox cart pulled by 2 bulls, overflowing with abundance and headed to the market, a metaphor for both material prosperity and sharing that wealth with others. This nakshatra is associated with fertility, agriculture, beauty, and artistic expression. Individuals with moon in Rohini have a natural inclination toward creativity, fashion, design, music, and business. Their mind seeks beauty and harmony in all things, whether in relationships, their surroundings, or the arts. Aesthetics are not just preferences. They are necessities for inner peace. As such, many Rohini individuals are drawn to professions where external beauty and internal satisfaction go hand in hand, such as modeling, makeup artistry, interior design, luxury brand business, or performing arts. On an emotional level, Rohini brings stability and calm, making this one of the most emotionally composed positions for the moon. These individuals handle chaos with quiet strength, and their ability to remain poised in turbulent times can be inspiring. Their emotional responses are rarely impulsive or dramatic. Rather, they are calculated, grounded, and consistent. This stability comes at a price. Change and unpredictability disrupt their inner world significantly. Moon and Rohini people often develop strong attachments to people, places, objects, routines, and status, and letting go or adapting to change becomes a major emotional struggle. Their fear of instability can drive them to cling to wealth, relationships, or emotional validation. Rohini is also associated with sensuality, indulgence, and pleasure, not only due to its mythological roots but also because of its Taurus influence. These individuals enjoy physical pleasures to the fullest: good food, luxurious fabrics, romantic intimacy, and physical touch. They know how to attract others with their magnetic charm and alluring presence. Their eyes and facial features are often striking, and there's a hypnotic aura around them, just like the cobra, which is the symbolic animal of this nakshatra. This very magnetism can lead to complications. Others may become so captivated by the persona of a Rohini native that they create unrealistic expectations. Once the glamour fades or the deeper personality is revealed, they may feel disillusioned, causing Rohini individuals to be seen as shallow, even if that isn't the case. Emotionally, they can be extremely sensitive. Words wound them deeply, even if they hide it well. They crave appreciation and validation, especially for their looks or talents. If ignored or rejected, they may retreat into themselves or become subtly manipulative in order to regain control or attention. There's a narcissistic shadow that can emerge if they don't receive the emotional nourishment they expect, often becoming moody, non-forgiving, or even deceptive to preserve their image or emotional security. One of the profound aspects of this nakshatra is its association with growth and expansion. The name Rohini means the red one, symbolizing not just physical fertility, but also the desire to create, whether it's children, wealth, art, or ideas. These individuals are goal-oriented and are constantly looking to grow, financially, socially, or emotionally. The image of the chariot moving toward the marketplace represents this forward motion. When the moon is placed here, it reflects a mind that is always seeking the next level, striving for more comfort, more love, more recognition. The challenge is to temper this drive with contentment, learning to pause and enjoy what they already possess before rushing toward more. From a relationship standpoint, Moon in Rohini can lead to strong attachments, but also jealousy and insecurity. Since the moon itself represents the mother, and Rohini is one of the most nurturing nakshatras, there is often deep maternal affection and emotional support in the native's early life. This very support can sometimes make the native overly dependent on others for emotional comfort as an adult. In romantic relationships, they tend to become overly possessive if they feel even a slight threat to the emotional exclusivity they expect. On a more spiritual level, Rohini, ruled by Brahma, the creator, also reflects a creative mind aligned with universal principles of fertility, manifestation, and growth. These individuals have the power to attract what they desire, often drawing opportunities and wealth through their charm and consistency. But the same mythology that links Rohini to Brahma's obsession also warns against being blinded by desire. Without spiritual grounding, Moon and Rohini individuals can become too self-indulgent, attached to their pleasures and prone to ignoring deeper emotional needs or truths. In a higher expression, Moon in Rohini is about finding beauty in simplicity, being rooted yet graceful, and using one's charm not for manipulation, but for inspiration. Their mind can be a fertile field for great ideas, artistic pursuits, and lasting relationships, provided they learn to balance desire with detachment, and sensual pleasure with inner fulfillment. As always, this placement's results vary based on house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dashas, and the overall chart. But in isolation, Moon in Rohini offers one of the most balanced, creative, emotionally rich, and charming minds in the nakshatra's realm, as long as the native learns to manage possessiveness and the fear of emotional loss. When the moon is placed in Mrigashira Nakshatra, it signifies a mind that is constantly in motion, restless, curious, always seeking, and rarely satisfied. This is one of the most mentally active and inquisitive placements in the zodiac, where the emotional and mental nature of the individual is influenced by both Mars, the nakshatra ruler, and Venus and Mercury, the sign rulers, due to Mrigashira's span across Taurus and Gemini. The name Mrigashira literally means head of a deer, and just like a deer, cautious, swift, and always searching, this nakshatra brings those exact behavioral traits to the native's psyche when the moon is present here. Emotionally, individuals with moon in Mrigashira often feel incomplete or unsatisfied, because their minds are wired to search. They chase goals, dreams, relationships, or objects of desire, but once those are attained, a new search begins. It is not the achievement they long for, but the pursuit itself that thrills them. Their emotional satisfaction is derived from movement, exploration, and novelty. This makes them eternal seekers, both in the physical and mental realms. Their minds are rarely at rest, and they can often be seen hopping from one interest to another, sometimes in careers, sometimes in relationships, and often in their personal hobbies or spiritual quests. The duality of the nakshatra's placement, part in Taurus, earth sign, and part in Gemini, air sign, plays a significant role in how this moon expresses itself. In the Taurus section, the moon is still exalted, which allows for some stability. Here, the emotional search is directed more towards security, wealth, and sensual pleasures. The native may chase material desires and strive for a lifestyle that offers comfort and stability. In the Gemini section, the moon shifts into a sign ruled by Mercury, which is considered as an enemy to the moon. As a result, mental restlessness intensifies, and the mind begins to scatter in multiple directions. The individual may become easily distracted, emotionally fickle, or constantly feel the grass is greener on the other side. Mrigashira's energy is deeply desire-oriented, a theme reflected in its ruling deities, symbols, and mythology. Governed by Soma, the moon god, this nakshatra carries a strong theme of lust, obsession, and sensuality. Soma's legendary obsession with his wife Rohini, from the previous nakshatra, reflects how Mrigashira can make the native emotionally or even romantically obsessive. There's a strong craving for connection and possession, but once intimacy or closeness is established, the excitement may fade, and the person may begin looking elsewhere. Relationships for moon and Mrigashira individuals can often feel like a series of pursuits, filled with highs during the chase and lows after achievement. This placement can create a mind that is in perpetual motion in love, always in search of the next thrill or emotional stimulation. Because of the Martian rulership, there's a strong element of impulsiveness and restlessness. These individuals may express their emotions through action, sometimes aggressively, sometimes through pursuits that involve energy, adventure, or even confrontation. Mars' influence also gives them a sharp intellect and strong stamina, which allows them to dig deep into any subject they find intriguing. They can be excellent at research, investigation, analysis, or any activity that requires them to uncover hidden truths. Their minds are naturally suited for professions involving teaching, journalism, writing, forensics, law enforcement, or even intelligence gathering. There's also a hidden spiritual theme present here. The Mrigashira moon individual is often on an outer search for happiness, only to eventually realize that peace and contentment can only be found within. Emotionally, these individuals can be delicate, sensitive, and perceptive, picking up subtle cues from their environment. This sensitivity makes them intuitive, especially in understanding others' feelings or motives, but it also makes them prone to mood swings, anxiety, or sudden emotional shifts, especially in the Gemini section. In social settings, they are often witty, charming, and engaging, with a youthful, curious energy that attracts others easily. The downside is their inconsistency. Friends, partners, or colleagues may find them unpredictable or unreliable over the long term if their inner emotional restlessness isn't managed well. A unique aspect of Mrigashira is its connection to disguise and secrecy. The mythological associations with Brahma transforming into a deer, and the moon eloping with Tara, show a strong undercurrent of hidden desires, secret pursuits, and an aversion to exposure. Mrigashira moon individuals often prefer to keep parts of their lives private, sometimes using social masks or adopting multiple personas in different settings. In today's age, they may be the ones with anonymous profiles, multiple online identities, or a tendency to guard their personal life closely. From a psychological and emotional perspective, the moon in Mrigashira indicates a divided mind, one part rooted in sensual enjoyment, Taurus, and another that is intellectually restless and experimental, Gemini. This duality creates emotional ambivalence, a struggle between wanting comfort and craving stimulation. Until they develop emotional maturity, these individuals may confuse temporary thrills with lasting happiness, leading to dissatisfaction and emotional fatigue. Once they begin to understand their own patterns, especially through introspection or spiritual practices, they can transform this energy into constructive pursuits, becoming thought leaders, educators, healers, or spiritual seekers. Another notable feature is their sensory orientation. These individuals tend to have a heightened sense of smell and are naturally drawn to aromatherapy, perfumes, candles, and essential oils. Scent has a direct impact on their emotional state, and they are often more emotionally relaxed in beautifully scented environments. Aesthetics matter deeply to them, not just visually, but in all sensory forms. Overall, the moon in Mrigashira Nakshatra signifies a mind driven by curiosity, propelled by desire, and soothed by discovery. These individuals are eternal wanderers of the heart and mind, always looking for new experiences, relationships, and insights. Their journey is one of movement, emotional, mental, and sometimes physical, until they realize that the ultimate peace they seek is already within. To reach their highest potential, they must learn to slow down, ground their emotions, and find joy in stillness just as much as they do in pursuit. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Ardra Nakshatra, the emotional body of a person is like a storm, intense, transformative, often misunderstood, and constantly evolving through inner and outer turmoil. The moon, being the most sensitive and changeable planet, takes on a highly restless and chaotic tone when it comes under the influence of Ardra. This nakshatra, which spans from 6 degrees 40 foot to 20 degrees 00 in the sign of Gemini, is ruled by Rahu, the shadowy north node of the moon, and is symbolized by a teardrop, storm, diamond, and skull, each representing the emotional upheaval, destruction, brilliance through hardship, and mortality that this nakshatra embodies. A person with moon in Ardra typically feels life more deeply than most, but not in a poetic or dreamy way. Instead, their emotional experiences are often turbulent, extreme, and raw. The nakshatra is ruled by Rudra, the fierce and howling form of Shiva. This myth symbolizes a deeply wounded archetype, one who has faced abandonment, rejection, and betrayal, yet also one who finds strength in isolation. Consequently, those with Ardra moon are often loners by nature. They need solitude, not as a luxury, but as a survival mechanism, a way to process the internal storms they constantly face. Emotions in Ardra are not simple or linear. These individuals can shift from joy to sorrow, peace to rage, hope to despair, all in a matter of moments. Their inner landscape is that of constant flux, which makes them emotionally unpredictable to others. While they are highly resilient, the scars of their past, whether from trauma, loss, or deep disappointment, are never completely erased. They carry the memory of their emotional storms like the sky remembers thunder, even when it clears. And yet, like the raindrop, Ardra moon people must break down before they can be renewed. The chaos they experience is not without purpose. It serves as a catalyst for transformation, forcing them to let go of what no longer serves and making space for the light of Punarvasu, the next nakshatra. The moon here is under the shadow of Rahu, which means that the mind may often be clouded by illusion, obsession, or misplaced desires. There is a tendency to seek emotional comfort in external stimulation, be it relationships, foreign lands, technology, or even the fantasy of escapism. These individuals may find it difficult to see reality clearly, as their mind often operates through a filter of trauma or distortion. Some may even choose to remain under that illusion, believing it to be more bearable than truth. This is why meditation, therapy, and self-inquiry are essential for Ardra moon individuals. The healing of their mind is not optional. It is vital to their ability to make wise decisions and to live a fulfilling life. On a psychological level, many Ardra moon people experience nightmares, anxiety, or sleep disturbances, especially during Rahu periods or when the moon is afflicted. Their minds may be plagued by fears that feel irrational but are rooted in very real past experiences. They are also prone to internalizing chaos, making them emotionally reactive and sometimes impulsive in response to pressure or emotional triggers. It is this very depth of suffering and emotional disturbance that refines their inner strength, just as a diamond is only formed through immense pressure and time. In relationships, Ardra Moon individuals are fiercely loyal, much like the female dog, which is the animal symbol of this nakshatra. They can be intensely devoted to their loved ones, but their emotional volatility may make them difficult partners unless they've done inner work. They crave depth and meaning in their connections, and if those expectations are unmet, they may retreat emotionally, howl internally, or act out through passive-aggressive or dramatic displays of emotion. Their capacity to love is vast, but it is laced with complexity and a need for both space and understanding. Professionally, Moon and Ardra can create brilliant minds that thrive under pressure, especially in fields related to counseling, research, communication, innovation, or emotional healing. The influence of Mercury, as Gemini's ruler, adds intelligence, wit, and adaptability, while Rahu brings a futuristic, tech-savvy, and boundary-pushing quality. They may excel in technology, space science, psychological therapy, writing, comedy, or any profession that involves transformation or navigating crisis. Some are naturally drawn to destruction-oriented careers: surgeons, first responders, crisis negotiators, war correspondents, where their emotional resilience becomes their greatest tool. Ardra's connection to the red star Betelgeuse in the Orion constellation, and the imagery of the hunter, also speaks of these individuals' precision and ability to shoot their arrow at a chosen goal with incredible focus. When they commit to something, a career, a mission, a cause, they can become relentless in their pursuit. Delays and hardships are almost always part of their path, as Ardra requires the native to earn their brilliance through the endurance of suffering. The result is often extraordinary. Just like a diamond buried under pressure and darkness, their true potential emerges after they have been tried and tested. There's also a mystical and creative side to Ardra Moon people. They are often fascinated by the mysterious, the metaphysical, and the unknown. They are drawn to science fiction, conspiracy theories, ghost stories, and the idea of what lies beyond the veil of ordinary reality. This fascination is Rahu's influence, the part of the mind that seeks what is forbidden, foreign, or hidden. In some cases, they may become inventors or thinkers who are ahead of their time, delivering sudden flashes of inspiration, much like a bolt of lightning that strikes without warning. Despite its challenges, Moon in Ardra can be one of the most emotionally evolved placements, especially when the native has consciously worked through their pain. These are the people who rise from ashes, who become stronger after every storm, who learn not just to survive but to thrive in chaos. They teach others how to endure suffering, how to remain authentic amidst confusion, and how to rebuild after devastation. Overall, Ardra Moon people carry within them the sacred paradox of destruction and renewal, of sorrow and resilience, of chaos and clarity. Their life is rarely linear, their emotions never shallow, but through it all, they develop a mind that is sharp, fearless, and deeply transformational. The challenge of this placement is real, but the rewards, when mastered, are profound. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Punarvasu Nakshatra, it bestows the native with an emotional temperament rooted in renewal, hope, and healing. This nakshatra, spanning from 20 degrees Gemini to 3 degree 20 foot Cancer, carries profound symbolic and spiritual meaning. It follows the intense, stormy energy of Ardra Nakshatra, offering a light after the darkness, much like a calm sunrise after a night of torrential rain. Punarvasu literally means return of the light, and when the moon, the planet of mind and emotions, resides here, it creates a psyche that is deeply resilient, nurturing, and spiritually inclined. People with moon in Punarvasu are emotionally geared towards restoration and balance. Unlike Ardra's emotionally raw nature, Punarvasu individuals possess an inner stillness, even if they have experienced upheaval. This is someone who knows how to rebuild their life from the ashes, again and again, without bitterness. Their mental attitude is optimistic. They may encounter emotional setbacks, but they don't allow despair to linger. There's a strong sense of second chances in their emotional life. Whether it's a failed relationship, a lost opportunity, or even personal failures, they believe in trying again, and often succeed powerfully after initial defeat. This nakshatra is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of knowledge, wisdom, and expansion. Jupiter's guidance allows Punarvasu moon individuals to develop a philosophical and spiritual approach to life. The deity associated with Punarvasu is Aditi, the cosmic mother, who is boundless and nurturing. Her symbolism runs deep in these individuals, many of whom become caregivers, nurturers, counselors, or spiritual guides in some form. They are emotionally fulfilled when they give. Their nourishment comes not from receiving, but from being a source of light to others. These are the people who are emotionally satisfied when they are helping others recover, whether from trauma, illness, grief, or failure. A key element in understanding Moon in Punarvasu is duality, a theme deeply embedded in its position across Gemini and Cancer, as well as its connection to the Castor and Pollux twin stars. Emotionally, these individuals often oscillate between rationality and sensitivity, intellect and nurturing, logic and compassion. In the Gemini section, the mind is more analytical and expressive. They may use words, teaching, or communication to heal and guide. These are the counselors, writers, and motivational speakers who provide hope through insight and wisdom. The Moon in this portion tends to be clever, versatile, and able to reach many people through its curious and articulate nature. In contrast, when the Moon is placed in the Cancer section of Punarvasu, its qualities become more intuitive, emotional, and personal. The native may be drawn to nurturing roles like caregiving, nursing, or direct healing. They are more emotionally driven and are often empathetic to the point of absorbing the pain of others. These individuals feel safe when they are creating safe spaces for others, such as a home, a clinic, or even an emotional sanctuary through their presence. There's a strong maternal essence here. Whether male or female, they often act as emotional protectors in their families or communities. Another prominent theme is rehabilitation and recovery. This nakshatra is particularly active in the aftermath of chaos. The Moon here indicates a mind that instinctively knows how to put broken pieces back together. These individuals may work in hospitals, counseling centers, rehab facilities, or become involved in spiritual and emotional healing spaces. Their own life stories often reflect this pattern. They go through a phase of personal disintegration, followed by a profound journey of rebuilding, stronger and wiser than before. Emotionally, Moon in Punarvasu people value peace, stability, and harmony. They tend to avoid toxic or conflict-ridden environments, and will often walk away from drama rather than engage in it. Their temperament is rarely aggressive. Instead, they use reason, faith, and patience to navigate challenges. They can sometimes become too passive or idealistic, expecting everyone to respond with the same grace and maturity. In relationships, this placement often brings a theme of return. A lost love may reappear, or a failed relationship may give way to a much more fulfilling one. There's a strong pattern of emotional redemption in love. The symbol of the quiver of arrows is also insightful. It represents not only readiness and self-reliance, but also the ability to aim and try again. These individuals are emotionally equipped to take multiple shots at their goals. They don't crumble after a failure. They reflect, realign, and shoot again. In this sense, they can be persistent dreamers with remarkable endurance. If one career fails, they begin another. If one phase of life crumbles, they rebuild. Their emotional resilience is one of their greatest assets. The influence of Mercury and the Moon as sign rulers further enhances their emotional complexity. Gemini's Mercury gives a sharp, thinking mind, capable of introspection and articulation. Cancer's Moon energy brings sensitivity and care, forming a dual nature that allows them to be both wise and warm. Yet, this same duality can make them indecisive or restless, especially in youth. They may struggle to choose between logic and emotion, thought and feeling. With maturity, they often learn to integrate these polarities, becoming balanced individuals who can guide others through chaos with calm wisdom. As the nakshatra of light returning after darkness, Punarvasu Moon individuals are often beacons of hope in their communities. Their emotional presence comforts others, even when they say very little. They carry a soft strength, gentle but unshakable. They might not be flamboyant or dominating, but they have an aura of quiet power, the kind that makes people trust them instinctively. Overall, the Moon in Punarvasu nakshatra creates a mind rooted in healing, revival, and faith. These individuals are the spiritual midwives of the zodiac, helping others and themselves through phases of pain into the light of recovery. They are living reminders that no defeat is final, and that renewal is always possible. Their journey may include storms, but they always carry within them the tools to return home, stronger, wiser, and whole once more. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the Moon is placed in Pushya Nakshatra, it brings about one of the most nurturing, maternal, and spiritually giving expressions of the mind in the entire zodiac. This nakshatra, entirely within the Cancer sign, from 3°20' to 16°40, is naturally aligned with the Moon's own domain, enhancing and amplifying the Moon's qualities of care, emotion, and protection. In Vedic astrology, this nakshatra is known for being highly auspicious, not because it leads to material success quickly, but because it forms the emotional foundation for selfless service and spiritual growth. Pushya literally means to nourish, and this single idea encapsulates the emotional orientation of a person whose Moon resides here. Their mind naturally leans toward taking care of others, not in a transactional or reward-seeking way, but because they feel emotionally fulfilled by supporting, healing, and protecting others. This quality is not limited to family or close relations. In fact, Pushya Moon individuals are often seen as universal caregivers. Their emotional instinct is to treat strangers with compassion, to assist the vulnerable, and to take responsibility for others' well-being, often without being asked. This nakshatra is symbolized by the udder of a cow, an ancient and powerful metaphor for nourishment, motherhood, and unconditional giving. Similarly, the emotional impulse of a Pushya Moon native is generous and unceasing. They keep giving, often to the point of self-sacrifice. In mythology and real life, these individuals may take up roles such as nurses, caretakers, teachers, counselors, social workers, or even volunteers who dedicate their lives to orphaned children, the elderly, or the ill. The moon, Cancer sign, and Pushya Nakshatra are all deeply associated with nourishment and caregiving. When these three align, as they do when moon is in Pushya, it forms a triple amplification of this maternal, healing energy. As a result, the mind becomes deeply empathetic, sentimental, and protective. These people often find emotional satisfaction in maintaining a safe home environment, cooking for loved ones, or comforting others during difficult times. Even if they are not in professional caregiving roles, their personal lives reflect this impulse. They are the ones friends turn to in times of trouble. The ruling deity of Pushya is Brihaspati, or Jupiter, the guru of the gods. This brings a layer of wisdom, spiritual knowledge, and moral guidance to this nakshatra. Pushya isn't just about emotional giving, it is about uplifting others through knowledge, ethical behavior, and spiritual insight. The presence of Brihaspati means that even though the moon here is in the domain of emotion and feeling, it is supported by deep wisdom and grounded ethics. This is why many Pushya Moon individuals are drawn to spiritual service, religious rituals, or guiding others on a moral or spiritual path. They do not just nourish the body, they feed the soul. It is important to remember that Pushya is ruled by Saturn at the nakshatra level. This introduces a layer of discipline, delay, and responsibility to the emotional nature of the native. Unlike other emotionally generous signs, Pushya Moon people may not express emotions overtly or sentimentally. Instead, their love is shown through acts of service, consistent support, and taking responsibility for others' well-being. Saturn also means that emotional fulfillment is often delayed or hard-earned. These individuals may have experienced early hardships, emotional abandonment, or a lack of nurturing in childhood, which later becomes the reason they develop such a deep desire to nurture others. There is also a karmic tone to Pushya due to Saturn's influence. The acts of service done by these individuals are often karmically driven. They are here to fulfill a higher purpose, often at the cost of personal desires. This is why Pushya energy gets corrupted when mixed with selfishness. If a Pushya Moon individual expects appreciation, reward, or power in return for their service, the energy backfires, and the results feel empty. But when their service is pure and without conditions, it brings deep inner peace and upliftment. Another dimension of Pushya, often overlooked, is its connection to infidelity and adoption through mythological tales. The deity Brihaspati, while a teacher and guru, had his own flawed stories involving infidelity. Therefore, when relationship-oriented planets like Venus, Moon, or Mars are placed in Pushya, the mind may experience complex emotions around fidelity, trust, and emotional boundaries. At the same time, this nakshatra has a strong association with adoption, both literal and metaphorical. Pushya Moon individuals often feel drawn to taking care of children not biologically their own, or emotionally adopting people who need care. It reflects their ability to love without ownership, which is one of the highest forms of nurturing. Physically, because this nakshatra is associated with the chest region, the native might have prominent chest features or issues in that area, such as bronchial conditions or sensitivity. Women with moon in Pushya may experience strong maternal energy, and if Jupiter is associated, they may have prominent breasts or a strong inclination toward motherhood. There's also a natural fondness for dairy and comfort foods. When it comes to career, Moon in Pushya often indicates someone who will gravitate toward professions that involve direct service to others, from medicine to early childhood education to social reform. Because of Saturn's rulership, success in these fields is rarely overnight. It comes with perseverance, humility, and long-term dedication. Pushya doesn't promise instant recognition, but it does promise lasting respect and spiritual reward. Overall, Moon in Pushya Nakshatra represents a deeply caring, emotionally resilient, and spiritually evolved mind that finds fulfillment in serving, healing, and nurturing others. These individuals are like divine vessels of unconditional care, often sacrificing personal gain to uplift others. Their emotional journey involves transforming pain into purpose, and their greatest gift is their ability to create safe spaces for loved ones, for strangers, and for themselves. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Ashlesha Nakshatra, the emotional body enters a realm of intense inner churn, emotional entanglement, and psychological complexity. This is the final nakshatra of the Cancer zodiac, stretching from 16 degrees 40 minutes to 30 degrees 0 minutes, and it brings out the most mysterious, magnetic, insecure, and transformational aspects of the mind. Ashlesha, meaning entwine or embrace, reflects the nature of the mind to cling, to hold on tight to people, emotions, memories, or even illusions, regardless of whether they are nourishing or toxic. With the moon here, the native often struggles to untangle themselves from deep emotional attachments and insecurities. Ashlesha is symbolized by a coiled serpent, and its ruling deity is the Nagas, mystical, divine serpents known for their occult powers, mysticism, and healing wisdom. This is further reinforced by its planetary ruler Mercury, which lends intelligence, analytical skill, and adaptability. Mercury's logic often clashes with the moon's emotional nature, especially in the watery, sensitive sign of Cancer. The result is a mind that is caught between emotional vulnerability and mental cleverness, sometimes swinging between emotional naivety and cunning calculation. Ashlesha moon individuals can therefore operate at two distinct extremes, on one hand being deeply emotional, loving, and dependent, on the other, coldly strategic, secretive, and manipulative, often as a defense mechanism against their inner fragility. A significant theme of Ashlesha is insecurity. These individuals often carry an emotional void, a lingering sense that something is missing or that they are not safe. This can manifest as clinginess, possessiveness, jealousy, or a need to control people or environments. Unlike the healthy nurturing of earlier Cancer nakshatras like Pushya, Ashlesha clings from fear of abandonment or loss, not love alone. Their fear may not always be visible. They often mask it with charisma, intellect, or even dominance. But beneath the surface, there's often a deep inner vulnerability seeking reassurance. These emotional wounds may trace back to early experiences, especially with the mother figure, as the moon symbolizes the mother and the emotional foundation. In Ashlesha, the mother may be overprotective, controlling, or emotionally unpredictable. The native may grow up with a subconscious belief that love means clinging or control, which can spill into their adult relationships. They may stay in unhealthy relationships simply because they fear loneliness, or because their self-worth becomes too entwined with another person's presence. This can result in toxic attachment styles, especially if Venus, the seventh lord, or the moon itself is afflicted. Ashlesha is not all darkness. Just as a snake sheds its skin, this nakshatra carries immense potential for transformation and purification. The same emotional intensity that can cause turmoil can also lead to spiritual awakening. Ashlesha is deeply connected to Kundalini energy, the primal force said to be coiled at the base of the spine in yogic philosophy. When awakened through spiritual practices like meditation or tantra, this energy can lead to enlightenment. People with moon in Ashlesha, especially those who turn their focus inward, often undergo powerful spiritual breakthroughs, especially after emotional suffering. Their journey involves facing their own darkness, purifying their emotional body, and rising with new psychic awareness. The Hydra constellation, where Ashlesha resides, also adds to this symbolism. It resembles a serpent in the sky, evoking themes of mystery, depth, and power. Individuals with moon here may have a hypnotic presence, often possessing piercing, magnetic eyes that draw others in. They may come across as mysterious, seductive, or hard to read. This hypnotic energy, combined with the snake symbolism, gives them natural gifts in areas like psychology, occult sciences, healing, and even sexuality. They are often drawn to taboo or hidden knowledge, and many Ashlesha individuals are deeply intuitive or psychic, able to sense subtle energies, lies, or danger even before it manifests. Yet, this nakshatra's challenge lies in learning to let go. The entwinement of the serpent becomes dangerous when it turns into strangulation, when love becomes control, and when protection turns into suffocation. This is where Ashlesha can become self-destructive. If the mind refuses to release old wounds, betrayals, or losses, it can lead to paranoia or mental health imbalances. Many individuals with Ashlesha moon go through periods of intense emotional isolation or psychological breakdowns, especially if their moon is near the Gandanta zone at the end of Cancer. But if they are able to recognize these phases as invitations to shed old layers, they often emerge with greater clarity, wisdom, and healing capacity than before. Professionally, moon in Ashlesha can draw a person to careers that require blending emotion with intellect. Psychology, counseling, medicine, especially psychiatry or alternative healing, detective work, occultism, or legal professions are all possible. These individuals excel in understanding the human mind, emotions, and patterns, sometimes using that knowledge to help others, and other times, unfortunately, to manipulate. Their life's purpose often involves moving from emotional dependency to inner mastery, from being tangled in illusion to becoming a guide for others through the maze of human emotion. In relationships, these individuals are intensely loyal, often bordering on obsessive. They need partners who are emotionally stable, spiritually evolved, and secure within themselves. Otherwise, their tendency to cling and dominate may cause chaos. When evolved, Ashlesha Moon individuals become some of the most protective, loyal, and spiritually magnetic partners, capable of deep emotional and sexual intimacy. Overall, the placement of the moon in Ashlesha reflects the duality of the serpent, the poison and the cure, the fear and the awakening. Whether the native succumbs to insecurity or rises through transformation depends on the soul's level of evolution. But the potential is immense. Ashlesha Moon individuals are not ordinary minds. They are alchemists of emotion, meant to walk through darkness and emerge as healers or teachers, not just for themselves, but for others who walk similar paths. As always, to understand the complete impact of Moon in Ashlesha, one must analyze its house placement, aspects, conjunctions, house lordship, and current dashas. A holistic approach to the chart is essential to uncover the native's unique emotional landscape. When the moon is placed in Magha Nakshatra, the emotional landscape of the individual is deeply rooted in a profound sense of legacy, power, and purpose. This is not an ordinary placement. Moon in Magha carries the emotional weight of ancestral karma, the desire for recognition, and the urge to rule or lead. Spanning from 0°00' foot to 13°20' of Leo, Magha is the nakshatra where the soul craves greatness, not just for egoic pleasure, but to fulfill a larger cosmic script tied to ancestral obligations and spiritual growth. Magha is governed by Ketu, the south node of the moon, a planet of spirituality, detachment, and past life impressions. Meanwhile, its placement in Leo, a sign ruled by the sun, the king among planets, gives this nakshatra a regal flavor. The symbolism of Magha is very clear, a throne or a royal seat. People with moon in Magha often carry a sense, consciously or unconsciously, that they are meant for greatness. Their emotional security and identity are closely tied to positions of power, recognition, and leadership. Whether they use that power to empower others or to dominate becomes the real test of this nakshatra's energy. These individuals often have a natural magnetism, a quiet but commanding presence that draws attention. Even without trying, they may become the center of attention in social settings or professional spaces. Their emotional fulfillment comes from being seen, respected, and even revered. They want to be remembered. This is not just vanity, it is rooted in the ancestral connection of this nakshatra. Magha is ruled by the Pitris, or ancestral spirits, suggesting that these individuals are here to continue, fulfill, or correct the karmic path of their family line. Often, Magha individuals are reincarnations of their own ancestors or carry the emotional and karmic burdens left behind by their forefathers. Therefore, even their ambitions are not entirely theirs. They are ancestrally encoded. With the moon here, the mind often seeks validation through achievements, titles, or public status. These individuals may be drawn to professions where they can hold power, lead others, or create a name for themselves. This includes government roles, CEO positions, political life, entrepreneurship, or anything that allows them to sit on their metaphorical throne. They may also have a deep interest in lineage, genealogy, or the history of ancient rulers and civilizations. Historic palaces, royal rituals, and legacies fascinate them, not just for their grandeur but because these things resonate deeply with their soul memory. Emotionally, these individuals can be complex. At their best, they are dignified, generous leaders who use their power to uplift others. Their emotional peace comes from knowing that their position benefits those around them. If the energy turns negative, especially if the moon is afflicted, they can become power-hungry, egotistical, and controlling. In this darker manifestation, the throne becomes a place of insecurity, and their need to be at the top reflects a deep fear of being seen as unworthy or irrelevant. They may become obsessed with their image, desperate for praise, or intolerant of criticism. Flattery becomes their weakness, and they may be manipulated by those who stroke their ego. Ketu's rulership adds another layer to this nakshatra's psychological depth. Ketu is a spiritual planet, but also represents detachment, past life karmas, and hidden wisdom. While the moon here desires the material rewards of power and recognition, Ketu constantly reminds the soul that all power is transient. This creates a paradox within the mind, a push and pull between the desire for worldly authority and the yearning for spiritual liberation. Many Magha moon individuals go through cycles where they rise in worldly status only to feel unfulfilled, leading them towards spiritual pursuits, such as occult studies, worship, or esoteric disciplines. Ketu also opens the door to ancestral dreams, déjà vu, and psychic insights into past lives. The sexual energy of this nakshatra, symbolized by the male rat, cannot be ignored. Male rats are known for their relentless mating instincts, which in Magha translates to individuals with high sexual energy and intense desires. If not properly channeled, this energy can lead to emotional entanglements or compulsive behaviors. But when harnessed consciously, this passion can fuel creative pursuits, intense spiritual transformation. The same energy that feeds lust can also feed devotion and transcendence, depending on the individual's level of awareness. In relationships, Magha moon individuals tend to dominate emotionally. They want to lead in the partnership and may expect to be admired or obeyed. The sole lesson here is about humility and empowerment. A true king or queen does not hoard power, they share it, uplift others, and create legacies that go beyond the self. If these individuals can let go of their ego, they become natural protectors and mentors, creating ripple effects of transformation in others' lives. The story of Krishna dancing on the serpent Kaliya is often linked to Magha. The serpent represents base desires, ego, and toxic pride. Krishna dancing over it symbolizes the soul rising above these traits. For Magha individuals, this story acts as a mirror. If they allow ego, power, and control to rule their emotional life, they fall into the trap of tyranny. But if they learn to transcend the throne's temptations, they embody the true spiritual king, the one who leads through compassion, detachment, and vision. Overall, Moon in Magha Nakshatra creates a personality driven by a sense of royal purpose. These individuals must learn to balance ego with humility, ambition with ethics, and ancestral karma with personal evolution. Their emotions are not shallow, they are tied to deep karmic patterns. When they operate from their highest self, they become powerful leaders, wise mentors, and spiritual pioneers. But if they remain trapped in the illusion of control and importance, their emotional life becomes a battleground of pride, validation, and insecurity. To fully understand the impact of the moon in Magha, it is essential to consider the moon's house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dashas, and overall chart dynamics. Only then can the complete picture of this powerful nakshatra be unveiled. When the moon is placed in Purva Falguni Nakshatra, it gives rise to a mind that is deeply anchored in beauty, pleasure, creativity, and comfort. The emotional makeup of this individual seeks not just love and affection, but a life that is aesthetic, luxurious, and full of sensual experiences. Positioned in the heart of Leo, and ruled by Venus, this nakshatra beautifully blends the Leo fire of expression and dominance with Venusian themes of love, artistry, and indulgence. Moon represents the mind and emotions, and in this nakshatra, the mind naturally leans toward romanticism, artistry, and sensory pleasures. These individuals tend to be highly expressive and charming. They are drawn to beauty in all its forms, whether that be people, fashion, art, luxury items, or the ambience of a well-decorated home. Emotional peace for them comes not through isolation or detachment, but through being surrounded by people, being admired, loved, and engaging in creative or pleasurable activities. A party atmosphere, music, intimacy, good food, and good company. These are the emotional safe spaces for someone with the moon in Purva Falguni. This nakshatra is ruled by Bhaga, the solar deity associated with wealth, enjoyment, prosperity, and marriage. It is not surprising, then, that individuals with moon here often experience strokes of good fortune, especially in the areas of relationships, material wealth, and artistic success. Bhaga also rules over contracts and unions, making these individuals inclined toward long-term partnerships. Marriage or romantic commitment often forms a major part of their emotional framework. This tendency also makes them prone to seeking idealistic or overly indulgent love affairs. The desire to love and be loved is strong, and emotional dissatisfaction in romantic areas can deeply affect their mental state. Symbolized by the front legs of a bed, this nakshatra signifies the beginning of relaxation, intimacy, and enjoyment. Unlike its counterpart Uttara Falguni, which is more about duty and commitment, Purva Falguni leans into the initial bliss, romance, and joy of connection. It is a place where lovers lie down not to sleep, but to share laughter, warmth, and intimacy. With the moon here, the mind seeks this kind of emotional lounging, a pause from life's responsibilities to indulge in life's softness. But the risk here lies in excess. The mind may resist duties, becoming complacent or indulgent, especially if other planets in the chart reinforce laziness or lack of discipline. The Venusian influence on this nakshatra makes these individuals highly sensual, often with a strong sex drive. The animal associated with this nakshatra is the female rat, known for its reproductive activity, which further emphasizes this deep connection to intimacy, reproduction, and pleasure. Individuals may express love physically and can be affectionate and passionate partners. When afflicted, this placement can sometimes lead to overindulgence in romantic or sexual pleasures, leading to emotional turbulence or unstable relationships. At its worst, it can breed a sense of entitlement in relationships, expecting admiration and affection without reciprocating commitment or emotional responsibility. The creative element of Leo, magnified by the artistic touch of Venus, brings out strong artistic and aesthetic talents in Purva Falguni moon individuals. These individuals often feel emotionally fulfilled when engaging in artistic activities. Whether it's painting, acting, music, dance, fashion, or writing, they need a platform to express their inner world. Many actors, performers, influencers, and entertainers have strong placements here. Their natural magnetism, flair for drama, and love for attention often push them toward public life, where they can shine under the spotlight. Their emotional well-being is directly connected to being seen and appreciated for their talent and beauty. Purva Falguni also connects to wealth and finance, particularly as it relates to luxury and indulgence. With the moon here, the native's mind is usually geared toward material comforts, and they may possess a knack for financial matters, especially when tied to creative fields or the luxury industry. They may thrive in professions like luxury branding, fashion, event planning, design, or even real estate. They understand the psychology of indulgence and can translate this into business success. There is also the tendency to overspend or measure emotional fulfillment by material gain. Therefore, cultivating emotional balance that doesn't rely solely on external opulence is important for long-term stability. Social interaction is another emotional need for Purva Falguni moon individuals. They enjoy being surrounded by friends and family, attending celebrations, and being part of a vibrant social circle. Their friendliness and warmth make them popular, often the heart of any gathering. This social nature also means that they may struggle with solitude or routine. A mundane life devoid of stimulation or connection may lead to emotional stagnation or restlessness. They need variety, affection, beauty, and inspiration to keep their emotional landscape alive and thriving. From a spiritual perspective, although this nakshatra is deeply immersed in earthly pleasures, the influence of Bhaga and Venus still offers the potential for elevated love and devotion. If the soul is evolved, the moon in Purva Falguni can channel its desires not into indulgence alone but into divine creativity and devotional love. Artistic offerings, devotional path, and spiritual celebration through beauty can become their form of emotional transcendence. In its negative expression, this moon placement can lead to emotional immaturity, over-reliance on partners for validation, or moodiness when denied comforts. They may avoid difficult truths, preferring to mask them with distractions or pleasures. It is important for these individuals to find balance between living a pleasurable life and taking emotional responsibility. Only then can the true blessings of Purva Falguni be unlocked. Overall, moon in Purva Falguni nakshatra reflects a soul that seeks joy through beauty, romance, and artistic expression. The mind is wired to bask in pleasure and is rejuvenated by creativity and connection. While they are gifted with charm, aesthetic insight, and emotional generosity, they must also guard against laziness, vanity, and indulgence. When channeled wisely, this placement brings a life filled with affection, artistry, and emotional richness. But as always, the full picture depends on the moon's house placement, aspects, conjunctions, and overall planetary context in the birth chart. Only a holistic view reveals the depth of emotional experience promised by this placement. When the moon is placed in Uttara Falguni nakshatra, the emotional core of the individual is shaped by a combination of duty, loyalty, responsibility, and pragmatism. This nakshatra spans from 26°40' of Leo to 10°00 of Virgo, blending the fiery confidence of Leo with the earthy practicality of Virgo. As such, it creates a unique emotional disposition where the heart seeks to serve, support, and contribute, both in relationships and in worldly responsibilities. Uttara Falguni is governed by the sun, and its ruling deity is Aryaman, a solar god associated with sacred unions, contracts, kindness, and social harmony. While its preceding pair, Purva Falguni, is concerned with romance, indulgence, and enjoyment, Uttara Falguni shifts the emotional focus toward commitment, structure, and service. The symbolism of the back legs of a bed reflects this transition, from rest and relaxation to rising, standing up, and getting to work. This nakshatra represents the post-pleasure phase where responsibility begins. Thus, individuals with moon in this nakshatra often possess a sense of moral duty and maturity, emotionally inclined to manage, organize, and uphold systems that benefit others. The moon here shows a mind that is practical, dependable, and result-oriented. These individuals are emotionally satisfied when they are productive. They are not ones to daydream or indulge endlessly in fantasy. Instead, they thrive when there is a plan in motion or a task to fulfill. The influence of Virgo, especially when the moon is placed in the latter portion of this nakshatra, brings a deep analytical capacity, making them highly observant and perfection-driven. This perfectionism is not frivolous. It is usually tied to a desire to improve systems, help others, or bring order to chaotic situations. Uttara Falguni's connection to contracts, alliances, and social responsibilities means that emotional security is often sought through committed partnerships. This moon placement values loyalty and is naturally drawn toward long-term relationships, marriage, and meaningful friendships. Unlike the romantic idealism of Purva Falguni, this placement favors the practical side of love, shared responsibilities, trust, and growing together over time. The deity Aryaman reinforces this, as he governs unions built on respect, values, and shared purpose. These individuals do not rush into emotional entanglements lightly. They assess compatibility logically and invest emotionally only when there's a sense of future stability. Their generosity and helpful nature make them dependable companions, friends, or colleagues. Yet, they must guard against becoming too available or allowing others to take advantage of their kindness. The emotional instinct here is to support, to give, and to contribute, which can sometimes attract exploitative people into their lives. Due to the rulership of the sun, this nakshatra also provides the inner strength to draw boundaries and protect oneself when needed. The key emotional lesson for Moon in Uttara Falguni is to balance service with self-respect. There's often a patriotic or socially conscious streak in these individuals. They feel emotionally driven to stand up for causes, support communities, or be involved in work that uplifts others. The sun's influence also makes them natural leaders, but these are not power-hungry leaders. They are administrators, mentors, and guides who gain emotional satisfaction from seeing others succeed. Their leadership is more about taking responsibility than claiming the spotlight. The emotional tone also becomes distinctly organized and perfectionistic, especially when the moon is placed in the Virgo portion of this nakshatra. These individuals often inherit a strong work ethic from the mother, who may have been a disciplined, detail-oriented, or service-minded figure in their life. The Virgo influence also makes their mind highly attuned to discrepancies, flaws, and inefficiencies, which can make them excellent in fields such as research, management, law, finance, and even medicine. They are emotionally secure when things are in order, and emotionally unsettled when surrounded by chaos or unpredictability. On the Leo side of the nakshatra, the mind has a desire to gain authority through hard work. Here, there's still some of the solar charisma of Leo, but it is tempered by responsibility. These individuals might be drawn toward public service, leadership, or positions of influence, but they will always want to earn their success rather than inherit it. There is pride in effort and satisfaction in seeing their dedication yield results. Their confidence is built over time, shaped by repeated efforts, self-reliance, and lessons learned from challenges. Uttara Falguni is also a nakshatra of conflict resolution, which adds a special layer to this moon placement. These individuals are not easily swayed by emotions in times of disagreement. Instead, they analyze situations rationally and strive to find peaceful and fair solutions. This makes them excellent mediators, advisors, or legal professionals, especially when supported by other chart placements. In terms of personal drawbacks, the moon here can sometimes make the individual overly critical or judgmental, especially when others do not meet their high standards. They might also struggle with emotional rigidity or an inability to relax due to their constant drive to perfect or improve everything around them. In their quest for structure and order, they can sometimes miss the beauty of spontaneity or the emotional softness of life. Learning to accept imperfections, in both themselves and others, is an important evolutionary step for this moon placement. Overall, Moon in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra signifies a mind that finds peace and stability, contribution, and meaningful alliances. These individuals are not driven by fantasies, but by what can be done realistically to improve the lives of those around them. Whether in relationships, work, or society, they are emotionally nourished when they are serving, building, or protecting something worthwhile. With their strong sense of integrity, loyalty, and leadership through service, they become pillars of support in their families, communities, and workplaces. As with any planetary placement, the full emotional blueprint of the individual depends on the moon's house placement, aspects from other planets, conjunctions, and current dashas. A chart must always be viewed holistically to understand how Uttara Falguni moon will manifest in a person's life. But at its essence, this nakshatra offers emotional fulfillment through purpose, reliability, and sacred commitment. When the moon is placed in Hasta Nakshatra, it signifies a mind that is intelligent, skilled, and service-oriented, grounded in the practicalities of life and deeply attuned to healing, support, and emotional care. Hastu, spanning from 10 degrees 0 minutes to 23 degrees 20 minutes in Virgo, is nestled in the core of the zodiac's most analytical and health-conscious sign. Governed by the moon and presided over by the solar deity Savitar, This nakshatra merges the nurturing and emotional essence of the moon with the illuminating and life-giving power of the sun. This dynamic blend births individuals whose emotional fulfillment often comes from being of service, engaging in precise, hands-on work, and bringing light or clarity into others' lives. The core symbolism of Hasta is the hand, which is not just a physical tool but a metaphor for action, manifestation, healing, grasping knowledge, and holding power. Individuals with moon in this nakshatra often find emotional peace when their hands are engaged in meaningful tasks. Whether it's healing through touch, creating something tangible, or organizing the chaos around them, they are naturally inclined to use their physical and mental skills to contribute to the world in very real, visible ways. With Virgo as the backdrop, this placement enhances the analytical, perfectionist, and detail-oriented qualities of the moon. The mind here is constantly processing, planning, fixing, and perfecting. These individuals tend to excel in fields where precision, observation, and methodical thinking are valued: healthcare, research, teaching, and healing arts. There is a natural affinity toward medical or caregiving professions, as both the moon and Virgo relate to healing and nurturing. Many with moon and Hasta find themselves becoming doctors, nurses, therapists, teachers, or counselors, anything that involves caring for others either through touch, guidance, or practical support. The presence of the solar deity Savitar adds an extra dimension to their inner world. Savitar represents new beginnings, enlightenment, and the spark of life. Moon in Hasta brings a mind that not only wants to serve but also to inspire, uplift, and illuminate others, often through their own hard-earned wisdom. There's a sense of quiet leadership in them, gentle, composed, but unwavering. These individuals can become beacons of light in dark times for others, simply through their calm presence, sharp intuition, and ability to take practical action. Emotionally, they are sensitive yet resilient, often holding themselves to high standards. There's a dual lunar influence here, Moon ruling both the nakshatra and being the planet placed within it, creating a double dose of emotional energy. This can make them deeply caring, empathetic, and nurturing, but also prone to emotional turbulence if they are not allowed to express or release their feelings constructively. Hence, these individuals do best in environments where they can help, serve, and be needed. The more their emotional energy is channeled into purpose, the more balanced and happy they feel. Hasta also emphasizes manual skill and dexterity. Whether it is physical crafts like pottery, carpentry, painting, or more cerebral tasks like writing, editing, coding, or designing, these individuals possess a strong connection between their mind and hands. They can bring abstract ideas into concrete form. The potter's wheel, another symbolic representation of Hasta, denotes shaping, molding, and creating, and this is precisely how these individuals operate in life. They are builders and crafters of objects, ideas, and even relationships. Interestingly, the clenched fist, one of the secondary symbols of Hasta, reveals another layer of their emotional character. While they are outwardly composed and polite, there can be an internal sense of control, secrecy, or emotional defensiveness. In relationships, they may become possessive or overly involved in others' lives, believing they are protecting or guiding them, but potentially becoming controlling in the process. Emotional maturity for these individuals lies in learning to trust and loosen their grip, both on people and on outcomes. One of their most overlooked yet powerful traits is their sense of humor. Hastu, derived from the Sanskrit word has, meaning laughter, also endows them with a witty, playful, and often sarcastic mind. This allows them to cope with life's hardships by laughing at them, and sometimes making others laugh too. This comic timing and ability to lighten the mood is another form of emotional healing they naturally provide to others. Moon in Hasta also makes the native highly routine-driven. Virgo's influence brings a love for structure, planning, and efficient workflows. These individuals may be drawn to daily rituals, healthy living, and practical time management. Disruption in routine can throw them off emotionally, as their inner peace is closely tied to order and predictability. This is also why they thrive in well-organized environments, and may prefer work that is task-based and process-driven. On the more shadowy side, this lunar placement can sometimes lead to restlessness, hypercriticism, or overanalysis. They may worry too much, nitpick flaws, both in themselves and others, and may have trouble letting go of control. Emotional wellness for them depends on learning to relax perfectionist tendencies and accept that not everything needs fixing. A clenched fist must sometimes open, just as healing requires both pressure and release. It's also worth noting that many qualities attributed to the moon in Hasta can be traced back to the mother figure in the native's life. The mother is often seen as a hardworking, capable, and supportive figure, someone who possibly worked with her hands or was the emotional caretaker in the family. This influence gets internalized, and the native, in turn, adopts a similar role in their own relationships, often becoming the reliable fixer and caregiver for others. Overall, the moon in Hasta Nakshatra creates individuals who are emotionally fulfilled through meaningful work, hands-on service, and nurturing others with practical wisdom. They possess a rare combination of emotional depth, mental sharpness, and manual skill, making them both healers and creators. As always, for precise interpretation, one must consider the house placement of the moon, aspects from other planets, conjunctions, and ongoing dashas. But overall, Moon in Hasta is the mind of the craftsman, the caregiver, and the quiet warrior who finds emotional peace not in grand gestures, but in daily, skillful acts of care and service. When the moon is placed in Chitra Nakshatra, the mind takes on a distinctive blend of creative intelligence, energetic dynamism, and a deep drive for perfection and structure. Chitra, stretching from 23 degrees 20 minutes of Virgo to 6 degrees 40 minutes of Libra, encompasses the analytical sharpness of Virgo and the aesthetic elegance of Libra. The combination of these two signs, along with the Mars rulership of Chitra and the celestial creator deity Vishwakarma, Tvastar, gives rise to a personality that is visually oriented, imaginative, action-driven, and drawn toward creation in both form and function. Chitra's core symbolism, the jewel or polished diamond, beautifully encapsulates its nature. The moon here reflects a mind that is not only aware of its own brilliance but is constantly in pursuit of refinement. The native may carry within themselves a sense of being a diamond in the rough early in life, going through life experiences that polish them into someone remarkable. There is a deep psychological urge to improve, perfect, and bring out the best in themselves and everything around them. Whether it's their surroundings, work, or appearance, the need to shine is inherent. The moon in Chitra leads to a mind that is visually intelligent. This is not just an artistic inclination, but an ability to perceive, organize, and design on both the physical and abstract levels. These individuals are natural designers, architects, photographers, or visual thinkers who can conceptualize in vivid images. Whether it's styling a space, editing images, curating digital content, or even interpreting stars, as in astrology, their minds find comfort and expression in working with form, structure, and visuals. The Virgo part of Chitra supports this with sharp analytical prowess and detail orientation, while the Libra part introduces a flair for beauty, harmony, and aesthetics. Ruled by Mars, Chitra lends a fiery and restless quality to the moon here. The mind is rarely still. It is always thinking, planning, creating, or moving toward a goal. There's an ambitious streak that makes the person strive to build something meaningful or lasting, whether it is a physical structure, an art form, or even a business. This drive is intensified by Vishwakarma's influence, the divine architect. Thus, individuals with moon in Chitra often feel compelled to create something tangible from their thoughts and visions. Emotionally, these individuals may have an inner tension between their desire for perfection and the imperfections of the world around them. This can lead to frustration or criticism, especially in the Virgo section of the nakshatra, where Mercury, sign lord, and Mars, nakshatra lord, clash in temperament. The moon in this Virgo portion can make the person overanalytical, emotionally reactive, and at times mentally exhausted due to their own high standards. It also gives them a sharp intellect and a mind that can dissect complex systems with ease. They might be drawn to professions that require technical analysis, design, engineering, or healing through order. In the Libra portion, ruled by Venus, the moon's emotional energy becomes more outwardly focused on relationships, beauty, and expression. The mind here seeks balance, harmony, and elegance, and there is a strong attraction to anything that stimulates the senses: fashion, colors, art, music, luxury. These individuals may be highly photogenic, interested in fashion or entertainment, or even work in fields like modeling or photography. Their charm, paired with sharp insight, often draws others to them, making them natural social influencers or public figures. Chitra also carries a more complex emotional undertone. The mythology involving Vishwakarma, Sanya, and the sun brings to light a theme of relationship conflict, separation, and emotional strain. When the moon, the significator of mind and emotions, is placed here, it often indicates a mind that has either witnessed or is emotionally preoccupied with relationships that involve misunderstanding, distance, or sacrifice. This emotional narrative might manifest as difficulty in forming lasting partnerships, or an internal pattern of feeling misunderstood in relationships. Interestingly, these same individuals may become relationship counselors, psychologists, or advisors who help others navigate emotional complexities, especially if this placement receives benefic aspects or is linked with the 7th or 12th houses. The balance point of Chitra is another fascinating aspect. As the 14th nakshatra, it lies right in the middle of the 27 nakshatra cycle. This midpoint positioning gives the moon a certain equilibrium, a mental poise that allows the native to see both sides of a situation. These individuals can become diplomats, mediators, or people with incredibly balanced viewpoints, especially when the moon is placed in the Libra part of Chitra. They are able to hold space for opposing perspectives, making them fair judges or counselors. Another key trait is their ability to manifest. With Mars energy and the visual intelligence of Chithra, these people often turn their thoughts into reality. They visualize their goals vividly and pursue them with vigor. This mental image-based manifestation is particularly strong in those who use vision boards, creativity-based goal setting, or visualization techniques. Their success often lies in their ability to see a completed outcome before it physically exists, just like an architect who sees the building in their mind before the first stone is laid. A potential shadow side of this placement is ego sensitivity, especially around image, creativity, or competence. Since Chithra symbolizes a polished jewel, these individuals may be overly concerned with how they are perceived, striving to always appear perfect or impressive. If not balanced, this could lead to vanity or an unhealthy reliance on external validation. Similarly, they may become argumentative or confrontational if they feel their creative integrity is questioned. Finally, with the moon representing the mother, many of the natives' Chithra qualities may be inherited from or influenced by the maternal figure. The mother may have been a strong-willed, artistic, or perfectionist person herself. Alternatively, she may have pushed the native toward cultivating their talents or maintaining a certain image, which leaves a lasting imprint on their psyche. Overall, Moon in Chithra Nakshatra gives rise to a mind that is restless, imaginative, artistic, and deeply driven by the desire to build, design, and refine. These individuals are the celestial craftsmen of the zodiac, blessed with both vision and technical ability, often caught between the worlds of imagination and reality, emotion and logic, creation and perfection. For deeper accuracy, house placement, conjunctions, aspects, and dasha periods must be evaluated, but the moon in Chithra stands as one of the most aesthetically intelligent and constructively dynamic placements in the nakshatra scheme. When the moon is placed in Swati Nakshatra, the mind becomes a powerful vessel of independence, adaptability, and a deep longing for freedom. Swati, which spans from 6 degrees 40 minutes to 20 degrees 0 minutes in Libra, is the very heart of this Venus-ruled sign. And despite Libra being associated with relationships, harmony, and social balance, Swati brings a very different flavor to the mind, one that is rooted in self-sufficiency, mental mobility, and a strong resistance to being confined by societal expectations or personal attachments. Swati, ruled by Rahu, the north node of the moon, is intrinsically tied to the energy of Vayu, the god of wind. The primary symbol, a blade of grass swaying in the wind, perfectly describes the nature of this nakshatra: flexible, responsive, but unbreakably independent. People with the moon in Swati often carry within their psyche a strong need for autonomy, not just in their career or routine, but also in thought, emotion, and life choices. These individuals are like the wind itself, restless, dynamic, and impossible to tether down. Their minds seek constant movement, and if life becomes too rigid or predictable, they often feel stifled or lost. Being in the center of Libra, Swati absorbs the full energy of this zodiac sign: fairness, diplomacy, artistic taste, and business acumen. Yet, unlike other Libra nakshatras which may lean toward dependency or relational compromise, Swati offers a twist. It desires harmony, but not at the expense of its individuality. This paradox often creates internal tension, especially in close relationships. The moon here craves connection, but only within the parameters of freedom. Emotional suffocation, control, or any form of dominance can deeply disturb the peace of someone with this placement. As a result, these individuals often become either lone wolves or highly selective in who they allow into their emotional world. The association with Rahu adds a layer of unpredictability and hunger. Rahu never feels full or satisfied. When the moon, the emotional self, occupies a Rahu-ruled nakshatra, there is often a mental restlessness, a sense of something always being incomplete. These individuals may chase new experiences, ideas, or people, always seeking a version of fulfillment that constantly moves just beyond their reach. This can make them excellent learners, explorers, and creators, but it can also mean their minds are in a perpetual state of pursuit. It is this very hunger that gives Swati moon individuals the power to reinvent themselves, to evolve, and to outgrow even their past versions again and again. One of the defining traits of a Swati moon is hidden potential. The mythology of Hanuman, the son of Vayu, reveals a story where he had forgotten his powers until they were rediscovered later in life. Similarly, individuals with this placement often carry within them great untapped abilities, especially in the areas of communication, creativity, business, and diplomacy. But these talents do not always manifest early. They require introspection, life experience, and often solitude. Breathwork, meditation, or any form of mind-body awareness can unlock these gifts. Like the wind, their strength lies not in brute force, but in subtle, consistent motion. Svati's connection to communication and media is also significant. As wind is symbolic of voice and breath, these individuals often excel in fields that require oratory skills, language, negotiation, or writing. They can be exceptional media professionals, entertainers, diplomats, or influencers. Their voice has a certain magnetism, and they often know exactly how to say the right thing at the right time. This persuasive power makes them effective negotiators and peacemakers. Their opinions tend to be progressive, even revolutionary, often placing them ahead of their time in terms of ideology and perspective. Emotionally, the moon in Svati gives a person a liberal and broad-minded approach to life. They tend to be non-judgmental and are able to see multiple sides of any issue. They can be good at mediating disputes because of their inherent sense of fairness and ability to remain mentally detached. The balance of Libra adds objectivity, while Svati's placement in the middle of Libra enhances this equilibrium. These individuals often strive for justice in both personal and social contexts, and they may take on roles where they speak for the underrepresented or act as arbiters of fairness. Yet, one of the challenges of this placement is the fickleness and inconsistency it can bring. The same wind that moves freely can also be scattered, and similarly, the mind of a Svati moon native can jump from one idea or emotion to another without resolution. If they don't find ways to anchor themselves, they may become mentally and emotionally ungrounded. Their desire for freedom can sometimes turn into avoidance of responsibility, commitment, or deeper emotional vulnerability. The key for them lies in learning how to maintain their independence while still forming meaningful connections that respect their autonomy. Svati moon individuals often do best when they work for themselves. The idea of being subordinate to someone else's authority doesn't sit well with them. They may face difficulties in traditional employment settings, especially if the work environment is too rigid or hierarchical. Entrepreneurship, freelancing, or consultancy-based work suits them far better. In fact, some of the most successful business people have Svati prominent in their charts, because this nakshatra grants a unique combination of charm, persuasion, foresight, and adaptability, all valuable qualities in business. As with all moon placements, the influence of Svati is often seen through the relationship with the mother. The mother may have been an independent spirit herself or someone who taught the native the importance of self-reliance. Alternatively, the native may have had to develop independence early due to absence, emotional detachment, or unconventional family dynamics. Overall, the moon in Svati nakshatra gives birth to a mind that is free-thinking, socially graceful, endlessly curious, and quietly powerful. These individuals possess a kind of elegance that comes from knowing their worth and never needing to prove it. They flow through life like the wind, sometimes invisible, often underestimated, but capable of great impact when directed with purpose. Svati teaches the moon to breathe through life rather than push against it, and when this lesson is mastered, these individuals become not only successful in their own path but also guiding breezes in the lives of others. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon occupies Vishakha nakshatra, it gives rise to a mind driven by purpose, passion, and the unrelenting urge to move toward success, often through inner and outer battles. Vishakha spans from 20°00' foot Libra to 3°20' Scorpio, covering two very different zodiac signs. While Libra represents balance, diplomacy, and relationship harmony, Scorpio is the sign of transformation, intensity, and emotional depth. As a result, individuals with moon in Vishakha experience a dual mental nature. One part seeks peace and social grace, the other is drawn to chaos, mystery, and depth. This internal contrast creates much of the psychological complexity that defines them. Vishakha's energy is ruled by Jupiter, a planet known for wisdom, belief systems, spiritual growth, and guidance. What makes Vishakha truly unique is that it is co-governed by two Vedic deities, Indra and Agni, who shape the emotional landscape of these individuals with a blend of desire, fire, and ambition. Indra, the king of the heavens, is associated with power, dominance, and the constant quest for satisfaction. Agni, the fire god, is symbolic of hunger, transformation, and an insatiable appetite, not just for food or sensuality, but for experience, knowledge, and accomplishment. Together, these deities infuse the native's mind with an unending cycle of desire and pursuit. The triumphal arch, one of the primary symbols of Vishakha, beautifully represents this nakshatra's enduring need to overcome challenges and be recognized. Those with the moon in Vishakha typically find themselves in a continuous loop of goal setting, striving, achieving, and then starting all over again. No matter how high the mountain they climb, the summit never feels quite enough. This is Agni's fire at work, an unquenchable mental flame that propels them forward with intensity. but can also cause emotional burnout or dissatisfaction if not managed wisely. Their minds are wired for achievement, and the victories they achieve in life often come through sheer force of will. Yet, Vishaka is not just about success, it's about choice. The nakshatra's very name and secondary symbol, the fork, speak to a divided path. When the moon is here, the native often feels mentally pulled in two directions. This duality can express as indecisiveness, especially in early life, or a tendency to live through two very different life chapters. For instance, a person might begin their adult life in a corporate job and later switch completely to a spiritual or creative pursuit, seemingly unrelated to their past. The inner fork keeps them questioning, evaluating, and sometimes torn between desires or values. Over time, this quality helps them evolve into remarkable advisors, as they develop a natural sensitivity to multiple perspectives. In Libra, the moon in Vishaka tends to exhibit traits of balance and diplomacy, even though the inner restlessness remains. The social nature of Libra tempers the fierceness of Agni and Indra, making these individuals excellent in roles that require tact, communication, and fair judgment. They may shine in law, counseling, public service, or leadership roles. Their minds are capable of weighing pros and cons, and even though decisions are difficult, they become skilled at resolving disputes or guiding others, particularly in relationships or business negotiations. When the moon moves into the Scorpio portion of Vishaka, the emotional intensity deepens dramatically. Scorpio is not an easy sign for the moon. In fact, the moon is debilitated at 3 degrees Scorpio, right at the tail end of Vishaka. This placement can create deep internal unrest. The mind may struggle with mood swings, trust issues, or fears of betrayal, especially if emotional stability was lacking during childhood. The mother, as represented by the moon, may have been emotionally distant or strict, especially in Scorpio/Vishaka, adding to early emotional challenges. But with time, this very emotional complexity becomes a gift. It urges the native to explore psychology, the occult, or deep spiritual knowledge in search of peace. Regardless of which part of Vishaka the moon occupies, one thing remains constant: devotion. This nakshatra is known for intense loyalty, whether to a person, a cause, or a goal. Once emotionally invested, these individuals commit completely, often with a kind of blind faith. This is particularly evident in relationships. Vishaka also symbolizes deep, unconditional love. Vishaka moon individuals often love this way, fiercely and selflessly, but may also experience emotional vulnerability or heartbreak if their devotion is not reciprocated. The challenges of Vishaka moon are many: emotional restlessness, indecisiveness, obsession with goals, and inner duality. These very challenges are the catalysts for their growth. Because they face inner storms, they develop wisdom and empathy. Many Vishaka moon individuals become counselors, teachers, or spiritual guides, especially in the second half of life. Jupiter's influence brings a desire to uplift others, and once they reconcile their own duality, they often become the go-to person in their community for advice. Interestingly, Vishaka is the only nakshatra that hosts both the exaltation of Saturn, at 20 degrees Libra, and the debilitation of the moon, at 3 degrees Scorpio. This contrast once again emphasizes the split theme. The moon seeks emotional comfort, but here, in the intense and transformative zone of Vishaka, comfort is hard-won. Life for these individuals may start with emotional chaos, but if they engage in self-reflection, meditation, or inner healing practices, they develop great stability over time. The key is to channel their mental energy into meaningful pursuits and avoid seeking fulfillment only through external achievements. Overall, moon in Vishaka creates a mind that is ambitious yet reflective, passionate yet divided, restless yet loyal. It is not an easy nakshatra for the moon, but one that promises great wisdom if its lessons are embraced. The restless search for success and meaning pushes them toward transformation. If they learn to balance their inner fire with mindfulness, and accept that some desires are meant to be stepping stones rather than destinations, they can attain both worldly accomplishments and spiritual fulfillment. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Anuradha Nakshatra, the emotional fabric of an individual is woven with threads of desire, devotion, mystery, and inner strength. Occupying the heart of Scorpio, Anuradha is an emotionally intense and spiritually rich nakshatra. Its essence lies in the pursuit of inner transformation, soulful connection, and the unwavering commitment to one's deepest longings. The presence of the moon here brings a deep, sometimes obsessive, attachment to one's desires, with a mind that is determined to follow them, regardless of the trials that lie ahead. Anuradha is ruled by Saturn, a planet of structure, delay, responsibility, and depth. But it operates within Scorpio, a sign ruled by Mars and Ketu, both volatile and transformative energies. This combination creates an emotionally complex person, one who feels intensely but may struggle to express it easily. The nakshatra's presiding deity, Mitra, brings the element of friendship, unity, and cooperation. Mitra is the god of harmony and cordial relations, suggesting that individuals with Moon in Anuradha possess an innate ability to form deep and lasting bonds. Their ability to make others feel seen and safe makes them beloved friends and powerful group leaders. Despite being placed in such a fiery and intense sign, the emotional expression of Anuradha is not chaotic. It is contained, thanks to Saturn's influence. These individuals may appear composed and calm, but there is often a quiet storm within them. Their feelings run deep. They are driven by a longing to merge, to connect, and to fulfill an inner yearning that feels almost sacred. This longing can border on obsession if not directed wisely. Anuradha individuals feel compelled to follow their heart's desire, often at great cost. They do not approach life half-heartedly. Whether it's love, career, friendship, or spiritual pursuits, once committed, they go all in. The symbolism of Anuradha Nakshatra reinforces its dual nature, spiritual devotion and emotional intensity. The lotus flower, one of its key symbols, represents enlightenment rising from murky waters. Just like the lotus that blossoms in mud, Anuradha Moon individuals often emerge from difficult emotional landscapes with great wisdom. Their life experiences, sometimes painful, sometimes mystical, become the very soil from which their soul blossoms. They are natural survivors, able to endure emotional wounds with silent resilience, and often use their scars as a source of compassion and healing for others. The staff, another significant symbol, represents the spiritual journey, particularly the Kundalini energy that rises through the spine, activating all chakras. This mystical symbolism is highly relevant to Anuradha Moon individuals. Their mind is naturally drawn to the unseen, the esoteric, the profound. Many find themselves interested in occult sciences, mysticism, tantra, yoga, and deep psychology. The Scorpio energy enhances their investigative nature, and with Saturn's influence, they have the patience to research and reflect deeply. They do not accept superficial answers. They want to know what lies beyond appearances. But Scorpio is also the sign of Moon's debilitation, and this makes emotional regulation a critical lesson for Anuradha individuals. When Moon resides here, especially in the early to mid degrees of Scorpio, the mind often becomes a battlefield. The emotional patterns may be marked by possessiveness, fear of loss, suspicion, or intense attachment. Letting go is not easy for them. The Moon in Anuradha finds it difficult to release what it loves, even when it's time. This can manifest as emotional dependence or obsession, particularly in relationships. If not directed towards higher goals, this emotional fixation can lead to destructive patterns or self-sabotage. Still, Saturn's rulership of the nakshatra acts as both a challenge and a guiding force. It demands emotional maturity, discipline, and responsibility. Anuradha Moon individuals are expected to channel their intensity into purpose. If they manage to align their passions with service, transformation, or healing, they become powerful forces of light. This is the difference between the one who inflicts pain and the one who heals it, both roles that Scorpio can play. With proper guidance and emotional grounding, Moon in Anuradha can make one a profound healer, counselor, or guide. Mitra's influence means that despite their inner struggles, these individuals are generally warm, cooperative, and emotionally generous in relationships. They form strong friendships and value loyalty above all. Their devotion to those they love can feel almost spiritual. In fact, the Anuradha energy resonates with divine love and soulful union. Their love is not superficial, it is all-consuming, intense, and sacred. They are drawn to people who stir their soul, and once they find such a connection, they hold on tightly. This makes them deeply loyal but also vulnerable to heartbreak, especially if their devotion is not reciprocated. Another aspect that stands out is their natural leadership in group settings. Because they are emotionally intuitive and understand power dynamics, they often become the binding force in communities, spiritual groups, or creative teams. They thrive in careers that allow for emotional expression, teamwork, and transformation, such as counseling, music, spiritual teaching, research, or diplomacy. Their logic, combined with intuition, makes them excellent at dealing with emotional or crisis situations. Anuradha's connection with occult and mysticism is particularly heightened. Being the central nakshatra in Scorpio, the eighth sign, it represents the peak of hidden knowledge. The mind here is magnetically drawn to mysteries. The individual may not only study hidden sciences but often lives through transformative experiences that awaken their inner light. Their connection to the Kundalini energy symbolizes that their enlightenment is not theoretical. It is born from real inner work and emotional alchemy. Moon in Anuradha thus creates a soulful, intense, and spiritually inclined personality, but one that must go through internal fires to find balance. Early life may bring emotional upheaval, but with age, wisdom, and conscious redirection of desires, these individuals often emerge as healers, guides, or powerful agents of change. They walk the thin line between light and shadow, between obsession and devotion. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Jyeshta Nakshatra, the native is graced, or challenged, with a complex mix of power, insecurity, leadership, and mystical depth. Jyeshta spans from 16 degrees 40 foot to 30 degrees 00 in Scorpio, a zodiac sign already known for intensity, secrecy, emotional transformation, and depth of feeling. This is the final nakshatra within Scorpio, and one of the most mature, responsible, and spiritually potent among all lunar mansions. The moon here is in one of its weakest positions, debilitated in Scorpio, ruled by its enemy Mercury, and passing through the critical Gandantha zone between water and fire signs. Hence, the moon in Jyeshta is a deeply sensitive and spiritually potent placement, but one that also carries emotional volatility and a need for conscious inner work. At its essence, Jyeshta means the eldest or senior most. This symbolism plays out strongly in the psychology of those with the moon here. Such individuals often feel like they bear greater responsibility, even from a young age. They may be expected to lead or protect others, especially siblings or peers, and often internalize a sense of duty. Their emotional world carries the burden of being the elder, wise, dependable, and capable, but this can lead to feelings of isolation, pressure, and emotional fatigue. The innate need to be in control of circumstances and to maintain an image of authority can lead to suppressed emotions or overcompensation. Jyeshta is ruled by Indra, the king of the gods, and this gives the native an ambitious, powerful mental drive. Like Indra, they are often talented, influential, and even heroic in their actions, but they can also be deeply insecure, especially when they feel their position is threatened. Indra's myth speaks of someone constantly defending his throne, which mirrors the mental restlessness and protectiveness in these individuals. They are not quick to trust, and once betrayed, may carry emotional wounds for a long time. Their possessiveness, especially in relationships or regarding their status and reputation, stems from this underlying fear of loss. Emotionally, the moon in Jyeshta creates a stormy inner landscape. Scorpio's waters are not calm or gentle, they are turbulent, swirling with intense undercurrents. When the moon, a planet representing peace, comfort, and mental rest, gets immersed in such a territory, the mind becomes deeply reactive, secretive, and sometimes paranoid. These individuals often struggle with trust, and their early life experiences may reinforce emotional instability. If not supported with a nurturing environment in childhood, this placement can lean toward emotional manipulation, jealousy, or psychological isolation. If positively guided, the same emotional intensity gives rise to a deeply perceptive, emotionally intelligent, and transformative personality. These individuals can become healers, therapists, mystics, and protectors of the weak. The round talisman, the main symbol of this nakshatra, represents mystic protection and esoteric power. This symbol isn't merely decorative, it points to their natural affinity for the occult, hidden knowledge, and spiritual tools. Whether it's astrology, tantra, metaphysics, or energy healing, they are drawn to the unseen forces of life. In fact, among all nakshatras, Jyeshta is perhaps the most deeply connected with the mystical arts, not just out of curiosity, but often as a way of healing their own wounds. The umbrella, another key symbol, indicates both status and shelter. It hints at their desire for emotional security and psychological protection. On a material level, it also reflects their need for authority, respect, and leadership. Jyeshta moon individuals do not fare well in subordinate roles. They need autonomy and, ideally, positions of influence. Their minds are often sharp, calculating, and capable of strategy. With Mercury as the nakshatra lord, they possess analytical intelligence, strong communication skills, and keen judgment, though sometimes marred by overthinking or emotional bias. Yet, this intelligence can also become their weapon or shield. With their mind always alert to threats, real or perceived, they may become overly controlling or suspicious. They may find themselves tested through themes of jealousy, especially if they compare themselves constantly with others. But ironically, they too are often the object of envy, as their aura of power and charisma naturally draws attention and admiration. Despite their strong exterior, Jyeshta moon individuals carry deep emotional wounds, often linked to betrayal or neglect. This makes loyalty and trust sacred to them. They may have experienced emotional abandonment or complex maternal dynamics in childhood, especially with a strict or authoritative mother figure, shaping their emotional responses in adult life. Their emotional scars can manifest as possessiveness, emotional withdrawal, or defensive behavior. But again, if directed towards spiritual or psychological growth, these experiences make them powerful teachers and guides, capable of helping others navigate life's darker corners. The Gundantha part of this nakshatra adds another layer of spiritual depth. Planets here are transitioning between the water of Scorpio and the fire of Sagittarius, between emotion and dharma, transformation and truth. Individuals born with the moon in this segment are often destined to burn away old karmas, and their life may include profound emotional or spiritual turning points. These events are not gentle. They strip the ego and often involve emotional loss or crisis, but they catalyze awakening. Meditation, inner work, and deep self-reflection are not optional for them. They are essential lifelines. In terms of career and dharma, these individuals often gravitate toward positions of power, leadership, or administration. They are effective managers, advisors, strategists, or heads of institutions. Others may be drawn into fields of spiritual counseling, research, metaphysics, or psychological healing, especially if the Scorpio influence is prominent in the overall chart. If left unguided, this placement can devolve into manipulation, deceit, or power struggles, especially when ego overshadows wisdom. Overall, Moon in Jyeshta Nakshatra is a placement of extreme potential. It brings a mind that is powerful, intuitive, and naturally connected to hidden forces, but one that must be carefully nurtured and guided. These individuals are not here to live on the surface of life. They are meant to transform, protect, and enlighten. If they learn to manage their insecurities, transform jealousy into self-worth, and balance power with humility, they rise as some of the most influential, wise, and spiritually potent souls. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Mula Nakshatra, the mind is pushed into a terrain of profound introspection, relentless investigation, and powerful transformation. Spanning from 0°00' to 13°20' in Sagittarius, this nakshatra is governed by Ketu, the south node of the moon, and ruled symbolically by the goddess Nariti, a deity associated with destruction, sorrow, and loss, but not without higher purpose. The core essence of Mula is to break illusions, uproot falsehoods, and push the native toward truth and eventual enlightenment. The moon, a gentle planet that governs emotions, intuition, and the inner mind, feels deeply challenged in this Ketu-ruled field. And yet, from that challenge emerges some of the most penetrating, wise, and spiritually awakened minds in astrology. Mula's primary symbol, a bunch of tangled roots, gives deep insight into the nature of this nakshatra. Individuals with the moon here are obsessed with the origin of things. Their mind is not satisfied with superficial answers. They instinctively dig into the foundation, the cause, the essence. Whether it's solving a problem in work, exploring emotional wounds in relationships, or researching historical, occult, or scientific knowledge, these individuals go all the way down to the root. That makes them natural researchers, healers, and truth seekers, but also highly sensitive and often overwhelmed by the harsh truths they unearth. Emotionally, this nakshatra creates intensity and, at times, emotional volatility. The moon is emerging from its debilitation in Scorpio but still carries forward the scars of that emotional turbulence. Since Mula is ruled by Ketu, a headless planet that denotes detachment, isolation, and spiritual disconnection, natives often carry a sense of emotional separation, especially from the mother or maternal figures. Many Mula moon individuals report childhood experiences marked by emotional neglect, abandonment, or misunderstanding. Even when the mother is physically present, there may be a feeling of disconnect or karmic complexity between them, often rooted in unresolved past life ties. This early emotional fragmentation becomes the soil in which their spiritual insight grows. The chaos they experience is not random. Mula is all about destruction before regeneration. Nariti, the goddess of calamity and loss, does not destroy for the sake of cruelty. Her role is to remove false foundations, tear down what is weak, inauthentic, or illusionary. This can manifest in the native's life through sudden changes, loss, or emotional turmoil, but overall, these experiences forge resilience and awaken higher wisdom. They are pushed to find their truth because the illusions will not stand. The energy of Ketu ensures that these individuals carry deep karmic debts from past lives, especially concerning the house the moon rules in the natal chart. They may feel isolated from relationships represented by that house, and they often undergo spiritual tests through separation, be it from family, love, siblings, or material comforts. But what seems like abandonment is often a divine detachment nudging them toward a different path. These individuals are meant to walk a more independent, introspective, and spiritually aligned path, even if that means giving up conventional pleasures. Moon in Moolah also instills a strong inclination towards spirituality, metaphysics, and alternative healing. The symbol of the tied roots not only speaks of foundational understanding but also of herbal medicine and natural healing. Many Moolah Moon individuals are drawn to Ayurveda, traditional herbal medicine, healing, or even modern medicine and psychology. Their deep emotional wounds push them to heal others, and their instinctual understanding of suffering makes them effective counselors, therapists, or healers. Some also dive into occult sciences, astrology, tantra, mysticism, not just as intellectual hobbies but as tools for transformation. This nakshatra also brings self-destructive tendencies. When the native cannot process their internal chaos, or when emotional pain becomes overwhelming, they may turn to self-sabotage through addiction, recklessness, or breaking down everything they built. At its extreme, Moolah can bring emotional implosion, and the moon here, if not nurtured properly, can create inner implosions that ruin relationships, careers, or self-worth. Once they find clarity and insight, often through spiritual discipline or inner healing, they emerge wiser, calmer, and purposeful. Many of the most transformative people, those who rise after repeated falls, carry this nakshatra strongly in their chart. In relationships, Moon in Moolah often leads to intense karmic bonds, particularly if Venus, the seventh lord, or the Darakaraka is involved in Moolah. Such individuals often experience upheavals in love, especially early in life. Marriages may feel uprooted, or deep emotional dissatisfaction may drive them to seek truth beyond companionship. They crave depth and transparency, and superficiality in relationships never satisfies. If betrayed, they may destroy the relationship without hesitation, but not out of malice, rather from the deep-rooted realization that falsehood cannot be tolerated. Although Sagittarius is traditionally a sign of optimism, freedom, and expansion, Moolah's energy tempers that with a sharp realism and detachment. These individuals aren't blindly hopeful. They are analytical and piercing. They might appear philosophical on the outside, but their inner world is often shadowed by a history of loss, deep contemplation, and existential questioning. When they eventually reconcile with their past and accept the impermanence of life, they emerge as true teachers, philosophers, and guides, with a kind of wisdom that can only be gained through darkness. Professionally, Moon in Moolah favors fields that require depth, precision, and uncovering hidden truths. They thrive in medicine, psychology, research, investigative work, or teaching. As Sagittarius lends a love of knowledge and sharing, these individuals often become counselors, researchers, and philosophical guides to others, drawing from their own survival and insight. Overall, the Moon in Moolah Nakshatra is not an easy placement, but it is profoundly transformative. These individuals are here to uproot falsehood, both within themselves and in the world. Their path is paved with destruction, yes, but that destruction clears the ground for truth, healing, and enlightenment. The more they align with their spiritual nature and detach from worldly illusions, the more powerful, insightful, and healing their presence becomes. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Purva Ashada Nakshatra, the mind becomes aligned with ideals of higher learning, expansion, nurturing, and a deep drive to filter truth from illusion. This nakshatra, located in Sagittarius, is infused with the energies of Jupiter, the sign ruler, and Venus, the nakshatra ruler. The presence of the moon here indicates a person whose emotional world revolves around ideals, beliefs, and the pursuit of meaningful knowledge. These individuals are not content with superficial understanding. They have a deep need to nourish others emotionally and intellectually, and often dedicate their life to the care and education of others. The primary symbol of this nakshatra is the winnowing basket, a traditional tool used to separate grain from chaff. This symbolism beautifully captures the psychological functioning of Moon in Purva Ashada. These individuals are natural discriminators, not in a critical sense, but in their ability to sift through information, people, and circumstances to retain what is truly valuable. They are excellent at recognizing what serves their growth and discarding what doesn't. Their mind is tuned toward rationality, analysis, and refinement, making them ideal researchers, scholars, or teachers, especially in fields where logic and judgment are essential. Moon in this nakshatra brings a strong desire to nurture. Whether in professional settings or personal relationships, these individuals often play the role of caregivers, guides, or advisors. The moon already symbolizes care, nourishment, and emotional sensitivity. In this Venus-ruled star, those qualities are amplified with love, creativity, and devotion. These people tend to take emotional responsibility for others, often acting as emotional anchors for their family, students, or peers. There is a maternal essence to their energy. Regardless of gender, they are gentle yet wise, supportive yet principled. The influence of Venus and Appa, the goddess of water, adds a fluid and dual nature to their emotional landscape. Just as water can be serene or turbulent, their emotional temperament can range from easygoing and humorous to intensely idealistic and even self-righteous. Appa governs oceans and cosmic waters, and these individuals feel emotionally drawn to natural bodies of water, seeking healing and peace through lakes, rivers, and seas. Water not only soothes them but also inspires them, acting as a mirror to their inner emotional depth. This affinity to water often makes them drawn to travel, especially to destinations that combine nature, learning, and luxury. At the heart of their personality lies a sense of invincibility. The name Purva Ashada means undefeated or invincible, and this psychological imprint can lead to an enduring belief that they will ultimately prevail, no matter how difficult the situation. This gives them an admirable tenacity and inner strength, but can also manifest as unrealistic expectations or overconfidence. They might chase goals with an unwavering faith, even when those goals are far-fetched or poorly timed. The determination to fan the fire, as symbolized by the hand fan, shows up in their ability to persevere through setbacks. They rarely give up, but they may also need to temper their expectations and ground their dreams in practicality. The combination of Moon's emotional depth, Jupiter's philosophical nature, and Venus's aesthetic and social influence makes them deeply interested in truth, justice, and ethical living. Their minds are wired for higher education, law, and spiritual philosophy. They thrive in intellectual debates and love sharing their beliefs with others. They may become emotionally affected when others do not share their truth or see the world differently. At times, their emotional attachment to beliefs can make them appear rigid or judgmental, especially if they feel that moral or ethical values are being violated. An often overlooked quality of Moon in Purva Ashada is their strong communication skills. These individuals are usually gifted writers or speakers, especially in areas that align with their beliefs or values. When they speak with conviction and passion. They might write books, blogs, or articles, or become public speakers, counselors, or educators. They do not just convey information, they seek to ignite change through knowledge. In many cases, they become lifelong students or lifelong teachers, always in pursuit of something greater than themselves. The nurturing energy of this nakshatra also extends to relationships. They may expect honesty, transparency, and growth from those they love. If the relationship stagnates or if truth is compromised, they may feel emotionally betrayed. They are generally faithful, generous, and compassionate, but they will not tolerate deception or laziness. Their love is uplifting, and they expect the same standard from their partners. If not met with emotional reciprocity, they may either withdraw quietly or confront directly, depending on the house placement and aspects. A moon placed in this nakshatra often inherits its philosophical, artistic, or nurturing qualities from the mother figure. The mother may have been someone with strong beliefs, emotionally supportive, or highly invested in the child's education and moral growth. The early emotional environment likely revolved around learning, fairness, and refinement, and these qualities become deeply etched into the native's psyche. While Sagittarius lends a broad-minded, exploratory nature, the Venusian and watery influences in this nakshatra provide sensitivity and charm. These individuals can appear warm and radiant, especially when they are passionate about a subject or engaged in meaningful service. They may not always seek recognition or power. What motivates them more is the inner satisfaction of contributing positively to others' lives, especially through guidance, wisdom, or care. Overall, Moon in Purva Ashada Nakshatra creates an individual with an emotionally rich, intellectually curious, and philosophically inclined mind. These individuals are lifelong seekers of truth, meaning, and understanding. They are at their best when they are teaching, nurturing, writing, or serving others, and they thrive in environments that combine emotional connection with intellectual growth. While their emotional landscape may at times be intense or clouded by lofty dreams, their inner compass always points toward growth, purpose, and truth. With the right emotional balance and spiritual discipline, these individuals can become great educators, healers, and compassionate leaders, carrying others forward on their journey of life and learning. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in the Uttara Ashada Nakshatra, it produces a mind that is committed, driven, and deeply focused on long-term goals, especially those that lead to recognition, status, and career accomplishments. This nakshatra, stretching from 26 degree 40 foot Sagittarius to 10 degree 00 Capricorn, blends the philosophical and expansive nature of Sagittarius with the ambitious and disciplined temperament of Capricorn. Ruled by the Sun and influenced by the 10 Vishvadevas, this is a deeply karmic and dharmic nakshatra, where the soul seeks final victory, but only after sustained effort and inner transformation. The moon here reflects a person whose emotional fulfillment is deeply linked with their success, reputation, and adherence to righteous principles. The core essence of Uttarashada is victory through persistence. The name itself means latter invincible one, implying that true success doesn't come overnight. It is the reward for patience, discipline, and integrity. When the moon, the planet of emotions, comfort, and mind, resides here, the native may find emotional security not through material comforts or relationships, but through achievement, responsibility, and a sense of purpose. Their emotional rhythm is governed by long-term vision rather than fleeting satisfaction. They thrive in environments that demand dedication, structure, and sustained effort. This nakshatra's symbol, the elephant's tusk, points to strength, endurance, and a piercing nature. Just as a tusk can cut through dense forest, moon in Uttarashada gives the mental clarity and force needed to cut through life's complexities, handle challenges with grace, and reach the pinnacle of one's aspirations. These individuals often exude quiet confidence. They don't necessarily seek fame for the sake of it, but when they do gain recognition, it's usually well-deserved, earned through years of focused effort. The Sun, as the ruler of Uttarashada, gives this nakshatra a strong alignment with truth, ethics, and leadership. As a result, the moon here is deeply tied to righteous conduct and moral responsibility. These individuals are often naturally honest, even blunt, and may find it difficult to lie or manipulate others. This quality can serve them well in professions where integrity, leadership, and public service are valued, such as in law, governance, education, or social reform. Their unflinching honesty can also ruffle feathers, especially in environments that are politically charged or diplomatically sensitive. Yet, they stand by what they believe is just, even if it costs them relationships or popularity. The nakshatra's connection to Vishvadevas, the 10 universal principles, such as truth, desire, skill, time, willpower, and brightness, gives moon in Uttarashada a noble flavor. The mind is not only practical but also idealistic, often guided by a larger vision. These individuals want their work to mean something, to stand for something greater than themselves. Even in personal matters, they seek emotional depth and alignment of values. Shallow connections are unlikely to satisfy them. There's also a distinct division in how this nakshatra plays out depending on whether the moon falls in its Sagittarius or Capricorn portion. In Sagittarius, the moon gains from Jupiter's expansive and optimistic nature. Here, the native tends to be a philosopher, teacher, or seeker, using education and knowledge as a platform to serve others or influence society. Emotional satisfaction arises from learning, guiding, and helping others see truth. This placement may create a more emotionally open relationship with the mother, or at least a connection based on shared values or intellectual alignment. When the moon lies in the Capricorn portion of Uttarashada, the influence of Saturn becomes more dominant. Capricorn brings in a stronger ambition, focus on status, and a realistic, sometimes emotionally restrained, mindset. The native may work tirelessly to rise in the ranks of their profession, often showing exceptional discipline, patience, and maturity from a young age. The emotional climate in childhood may have been cold, rigid, or highly structured. These individuals might have had a strict mother, or a relationship with their mother that lacked emotional warmth. This could lead to difficulty in expressing emotions openly in adulthood, with a tendency to suppress feelings and focus more on practical matters. Interestingly, because the male mongoose, the animal associated with this nakshatra, has no pair among all nakshatras, moon in Uttarashada can sometimes indicate solitary paths in personal relationships, especially if other chart factors, 7th house, Darakaraka, etc., confirm it. These individuals may choose to remain unmarried, have late marriages, or live emotionally independent lives. It's not necessarily out of misfortune, but rather due to their high standards, emotional self-reliance, or dedication to career and personal mission. Despite this emotional restraint, moon in Uttarashada individuals are not cold or insensitive. In fact, they often possess a deep emotional drive to uplift others, to bring order and justice, and to live according to a noble standard. Their love language may not be affectionate words, but devotion, loyalty, and consistency. They care deeply, but they show it through actions rather than sentiment. Over time, and especially with maturity, moon in Uttarashada individuals often evolve into mentors, leaders, or advisors, earning the respect and admiration of others. They inspire others not with flashy charisma, but through substance, reliability, and depth. They also tend to attract challenges that test their endurance. But with their tenacity and clarity of purpose, they almost always emerge stronger. Overall, the The moon in Uttarashada Nakshatra produces an emotionally strong, disciplined, and principled individual. Their mind is focused on long-term achievement, and they are driven by a strong sense of responsibility and ethics. Whether in the educational, legal, or administrative fields, they have the mental fortitude to climb steadily toward success. The journey may not be easy. It is filled with responsibility, pressure, and emotional solitude at times, but their rewards are lasting, dignified, and well-earned. They are, in every sense, the unconquered ones, victors not because life was easy, but because they refused to give up. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon occupies Shravana Nakshatra, the mind becomes tuned to receive and process information through deep listening, empathy, and inner sensitivity. This is one of the most emotionally intelligent placements of the moon, as it aligns with its own nakshatra, creating a powerful resonance between the qualities of the mind and the essence of Shravana. The very name Shravana means hearing, symbolizing that these individuals are attuned to absorb not just spoken words, but also subtle vibrations, making them natural listeners, counselors, and empathetic guides. Shravana Nakshatra spans from 10 degrees 00 foot to 23 degree 20 in Capricorn, a sign ruled by Saturn. Saturn brings structure, discipline, and responsibility, while the moon brings emotions, intuition, and mental receptivity. Together, this creates a combination where the native's emotions are mature, reserved, and purpose-driven. These are individuals who often carry a deep sense of duty toward society, or toward those who confide in them. They're not the type to frivolously react. Instead, they respond after deeply considering what they've heard or sensed. This gives them a thoughtful, almost sacred quality in communication, which makes them trustworthy advisors and spiritual guides. The presiding deity of Shravana is Vishnu, particularly in his Vamana form. This mythological tale is rich in symbolic meaning. Vishnu's 3 steps to reclaim heaven, earth, and the underworld signify control over the entire cosmos, achieved not by brute force, but through strategy, humility, and intelligence. Likewise, those with moon in Shravana tend to approach life with quiet strategy rather than aggression. They achieve success by being clever, subtle, and diplomatic, able to gain ground through wisdom rather than confrontation. Because of this connection to Vishnu, and also due to the influence of Saraswati, the goddess of learning, these individuals tend to excel in academics, arts, music, and writing. They're lifelong learners, and their thirst for knowledge is often satisfied more through hearing and experience than through reading. This makes them particularly drawn to auditory learning methods. Podcasts, lectures, debates, or even spiritual discourses can leave a lifelong impression on them. Even in casual conversations, they remember details most others would overlook. This makes them excellent teachers, linguists, translators, therapists, or spiritual guides. The symbolic representation of Shravana Nakshatra is also rich and multilayered. The 3 uneven steps, a direct reference to the Vamana myth, represent spiritual and material expansion across all dimensions. These steps also symbolize phases of learning, listening, understanding, and then guiding. The secondary symbol of the year connects this nakshatra strongly to the 3rd house themes of communication and intellect. Shravana individuals carry the potential to channel divine wisdom, often unknowingly. But there's also a deeply private and introverted nature to these individuals. Capricorn as a sign is not flamboyant. It's practical, reserved, and mature. When Moon, a soft planet, finds itself in this Saturnian domain, it often reflects a person who keeps their inner life guarded. This is someone who listens more than they speak, observes more than they react. Their emotional world is introspective, making them shy or aloof on the outside, yet deeply engaged on the inside. There's often a melancholic or contemplative tone in their emotional expression. They can feel emotionally heavy at times, and may internalize pain rather than expressing it outright. Because the moon also signifies the mother, this placement may indicate that the mother played a strong formative role, possibly as a teacher, caretaker, or spiritual influence. In some cases, the mother may have been overly protective or treated the native as a child even into adulthood, fostering a lifelong emotional dependence. On the other hand, the mother could also have been the person who awakened the native's spiritual or intellectual curiosity, giving them the tools to become who they are. One of the more unusual qualities of Shravana is its connection to disguise or transformation. Just as Vishnu disguised himself as a Vamana, individuals with moon in Shravana may have the ability to present themselves in a way that conceals their true strength or intention. This is not deception in a malicious sense, but more a strategic veiling of one's power until the right moment. This quality makes them highly adaptable in social settings. They can mirror what others need, yet still retain their inner core of truth and purpose. There's also an interesting reference in the lore and symbolism of this nakshatra to a limp or uneven gait. For some, this can manifest literally as an early life physical imbalance or a distinct walking style. For others, it is symbolic of life's uneven path, early struggles that lead to greater maturity later on. Many Shravana individuals may face challenges in childhood or youth that shape them into wise, resilient individuals over time. The shadow side of this nakshatra appears when the gift of communication is misused. Moon in Shravana can, at lower levels of expression, get involved in gossip, rumor-mongering, or manipulative storytelling. Since they are so attuned to what others say, they may be tempted to weaponize knowledge or share private information without consent. This is why integrity becomes vital for Shravana individuals. They must align their intuitive communication with ethical intention. Overall, when the moon resides in Shravana nakshatra, the person is born with the emotional depth of a seeker, the patience of a counselor, and the wisdom of a guide. Whether or not they become formal teachers, they carry within them the gift of helping others find clarity through listening and guidance. Their mind is subtle yet powerful, rooted in tradition yet forward-looking, and always searching for a deeper truth, one that can help not just themselves, but others around them. To fully understand the impact of moon in Shravana, one must assess its house placement, aspects, conjunctions, and dashas, as well as the role of Saturn and the influence of the ascendant. Nonetheless, this placement by itself reveals a highly evolved emotional intelligence, making the person a natural bridge between silence and understanding, listening and healing, experience and wisdom. When the moon is placed in Dhanishta nakshatra, it creates a personality that is dynamic, materially driven, and deeply rhythmical, both in literal and symbolic terms. This nakshatra spans from 23° 20' Capricorn to 6° 40' Aquarius, and is ruled by Mars, while the signs it spans, Capricorn and Aquarius, are ruled by Saturn. The combination of Mars and Saturn is intense, disciplined, and focused, which brings a strong and active energy to the mind. Dhanishta is associated with wealth, music, and rhythm, but it also carries themes of emptiness, detachment, and solitude, especially in personal relationships. This makes Moon in Dhanishta one of the more complex and layered lunar positions in Vedic astrology. At its core, Dhanishta is the nakshatra of abundance and rhythm. It is ruled by the Vasus, a group of 8 deities who represent various natural elements. These deities collectively endow the native with qualities like intelligence, resourcefulness, confidence, and prosperity. The literal meaning of Dhanishta is the wealthy one, and this reflects the mindset of those with moon here. These individuals tend to be drawn to material success, and often pursue careers or paths that help them accumulate wealth, property, or social status. They have an innate talent for managing finances and resources, and even if they don't actively pursue finance as a profession, they are usually quite skilled at handling money in their personal lives. One of the most striking aspects of Dhanishta is its symbolism of musical instruments, especially the drum and the flute. Both these instruments are hollow, and that hollowness is more than symbolic. On one hand, it represents musical skill and rhythm, which is why individuals with moon in Dhanishta often have a natural talent for music, dance, and performance, especially involving percussion or wind instruments. Their emotional nature is often deeply connected with music. They may use it as a form of expression, healing, or even spiritual connection. The hollowness of these instruments also represents a certain emotional emptiness or vacuum, particularly in the sphere of relationships. This emotional hollowness often manifests in their personal lives as difficulty in forming deep emotional bonds. There is a detachment that comes with this nakshatra. As a result, people with the moon here may experience difficulties in love and marriage, ranging from delayed unions, broken relationships, or an overall disinterest in settling down. Even if they do marry, the emotional connection with the partner might be lacking or unfulfilling. Much of this stems from their high expectations, both from themselves and from others. They often seek idealized perfection in their partners, and when reality falls short, they withdraw emotionally. In addition, since the moon represents the mind and emotions, its placement in a nakshatra like Dhanishta can make these individuals highly focused, confident, and mentally active, but also opinionated, blunt, or argumentative. They are driven, ambitious, and incredibly hardworking, thanks to the Capricorn influence. But their mental energy can sometimes turn sharp or overly focused on control, especially if their emotional needs go unmet. They may also inherit a strong and assertive nature from their mother, but there might be emotional disconnect or unresolved karma with the maternal figure, especially if the moon is afflicted or poorly placed in the chart. The sign portion of the nakshatra also plays a major role in the expression of this lunar energy. When the moon is in the Capricorn section of Dhanishta, the person is more inclined toward personal achievement, recognition, and authority. Their mind is goal-oriented, and they may strive to build a powerful position for themselves through business, finance, or leadership roles. They may also face a more rigid emotional structure, sometimes becoming emotionally cold or distant, having been conditioned to suppress vulnerability in favor of ambition. On the other hand, when the moon is placed in the Aquarius portion of Anishta, the expression is slightly more humanitarian and collective. These individuals may still seek material gains but often channel their ambitions through service, innovation, or public impact. They might be drawn to roles that involve working for society at large, such as in NGOs, technology, or public communication, rather than just personal gain. Emotionally, the Aquarian side can be more detached or aloof, but it is also more inclusive in its vision. The relationship issues and tendency towards celibacy or emotional isolation may still persist if other relationship-oriented planets are also placed in this nakshatra. Despite these emotional hurdles, there's a natural charisma and magnetism about Moon and Anishta individuals. They are usually well-liked in social settings, especially when the nakshatra falls in the Aquarius portion. They tend to be witty, humorous, and quick thinkers. Their ability to read the pulse of a room, thanks to their rhythmically attuned mind, makes them excellent public speakers, entertainers, or influencers. They may have a wide social circle, yet still feel alone or emotionally unfulfilled. This inner emptiness can sometimes push them towards spiritual pursuits, especially later in life when material ambitions have been fulfilled or no longer provide satisfaction. The martial rulership of this nakshatra through Mars gives them immense drive, courage, and energy, which makes them resilient in the face of setbacks. They are fighters at heart and often succeed through hard work, discipline, and calculated action. Mars also brings impulsiveness, and when combined with emotional disconnection from the moon, it can cause them to react harshly or act out of ego in relationships. Overall, Moon in Anishta Nakshatra produces a unique mix of material abundance, emotional hollowness, rhythmic creativity, and determined ambition. These individuals are often blessed with talent, wealth, and opportunities, but their inner world may crave emotional depth they find hard to achieve. Their journey is one of balancing outer success with inner fulfillment, and learning to share their rhythm with someone who understands the silences between the beats. As always, a full analysis of their chart, including aspects, conjunctions, house placement, and planetary periods, will give a clearer picture of how Anishta's themes will manifest in their life. When the moon is placed in Shuddhabhisha Nakshatra, it creates a deeply complex, intelligent, and introspective individual whose mind is naturally attuned to healing, service, and uncovering hidden truths. Spanning from 6 degree 40 foot to 20 degree 00 of Aquarius, this nakshatra is ruled by Rahu, with Saturn and Uranus as the sign rulers. The symbolism, mythology, and energy of Shuddhabhisha make it one of the most mystical and spiritually rich nakshatras, and when the moon, representing the mind, emotions, and care, is placed here, the person is destined to walk a path of profound service, self-discovery, and often solitude. The name Shuddhabhisha translates to 100 healers or physicians of the gods, clearly reflecting its connection to the healing arts. When the moon is placed here, the mind is naturally drawn to healthcare, medicine, and holistic healing, regardless of formal training. These individuals often exhibit a deep inner urge to care for others, to alleviate suffering, and to help people in need, especially those dealing with invisible or psychological ailments. Even if they do not pursue a medical career, their very presence tends to be soothing and healing for those around them. Many people with moon in Shuddhabhisha are natural caretakers, often found offering emotional or spiritual support, and sometimes even taking on roles of therapists or guides, whether formally or informally. Shuddhabhisha is ruled by the deity Varuna, the cosmic god of oceans, waters, and the unseen. This gives the moon in this nakshatra mysterious depth, as Varuna governs all that is hidden beneath the surface. As such, these individuals often harbor deep emotions, secrets, or personal experiences that they rarely share with others. From the outside, they may appear calm, composed, even indifferent at times, but within, they may be going through powerful inner storms. The combination of Rahu's shadowy energy and Varuna's depth makes these individuals highly secretive, introverted, and emotionally self-contained. They may never speak of their struggles, yet carry a lifetime of emotional burdens in silence. This emotional containment often stems from a deep need for privacy and solitude. Unlike other nakshatras that thrive on social interaction, Shuddhabhisha moon individuals may enjoy occasional socializing but find themselves emotionally drained if they don't get time alone. The symbol of the empty circle further emphasizes the feeling of inner emptiness or detachment. This circle represents cycles, eternity, and the infinite, indicating that these individuals often feel like they're part of something far bigger and are on a spiritual journey that transcends the material plane. There is a sense of existential longing that may surface from time to time, prompting them to seek truth, higher meaning, or spiritual wisdom. Intellectually, Shuddhabisha moon individuals are brilliant, observant, and incredibly perceptive. They tend to have a sharp analytical mind and are naturally drawn to science, technology, metaphysics, and research. Their curiosity extends into realms that are unconventional or even taboo, such as astrology, psychology, space, conspiracy theories, alternative healing, and spiritual sciences. They are often fascinated by what lies beyond the veil, which leads them into deep explorations of topics others might avoid. Their logical mind combined with Rahu's hunger for the unknown gives them the potential to become experts in niche or futuristic fields. Emotionally, they can feel disconnected or misunderstood, especially in personal relationships. Since this nakshatra carries a strong Aquarian signature, it encourages service to humanity, but often at the cost of personal emotional fulfillment. These people are so focused on helping others, or pursuing a larger vision, that their own emotional needs may be suppressed or unmet. This self-sacrificial pattern can sometimes lead to emotional isolation, where they feel like they give a lot to others but receive little recognition or reciprocation. It's not uncommon for them to feel unappreciated or overlooked, despite their efforts to help others or contribute meaningfully to society. When it comes to the mother or maternal lineage, since moon represents the mother, these individuals may either inherit the qualities of service, secrecy, and healing from their mother, or feel a certain emotional distance or coldness from her. The relationship may be emotionally distant, or the mother may be seen as someone who endured pain silently. Alternatively, the native may also become the emotional caretaker of the mother, reversing the traditional role. In their professional life, these individuals often start their careers in structured environments such as multinational companies, especially those involving technology, research, or healthcare. As they evolve, many desire independence and shift towards entrepreneurship, particularly in fields where they can serve a humanitarian purpose. Whether it's through health, technology, media, or social causes, their ultimate drive is to serve humanity, not just to earn or survive. Their life path often includes sacrifice, and at many points they may feel that they've given more than they've received, but their impact on others, while sometimes invisible, is often profound. Rahu's influence also makes them adept at navigating digital spaces and identities, which can lead to interests or careers involving cybersecurity, virtual platforms, research, and online healing spaces. But it also means they can live with dual identities, or keep parts of themselves hidden from the public eye. There may be an internal split between who they show to the world and who they truly are, which can lead to a long journey of self-acceptance and integration. Overall, when the moon is placed in Shuddhabisha nakshatra, it creates a mind that is intelligent, private, service-oriented, and deeply spiritual. These individuals are healers in disguise, often helping others behind the scenes, carrying great wisdom and compassion within. Yet, they must also learn to honor their own emotional needs, express vulnerability, and seek genuine connection, so their service to the world doesn't come at the cost of their own inner wholeness. As always, to understand the full picture, one must analyze the moon's house placement, sign, aspects, conjunctions, and planetary periods, as these will refine and reveal the deeper nuances of how Shuddhabisha's profound energy manifests in their life. When the moon is placed in Purvabhadrapada nakshatra, the emotional and mental fabric of the individual becomes deeply influenced by themes of spiritual initiation, duality, and mystical transformation. Stretching from 20 degrees Aquarius to 3 degrees 20 minutes Pisces, this nakshatra operates on a subtle yet intense frequency, blending the airy intellect of Aquarius with the spiritual depths of Pisces. Governed by Jupiter, and under the influence of Saturn, Purvabhadrapada creates a mind that can oscillate between worldly intensity and transcendental longing. At its core, Purvabhadrapada is a nakshatra of transition. It marks the beginning of the path toward liberation. The name itself, meaning former auspicious feet, symbolically alludes to the first step into the realm of spiritual realization, like a soul beginning to turn inward after tasting the initial spark of divine truth. The moon here indicates that the person's emotional security and mental focus begin shifting toward higher knowledge, philosophical inquiry, and mystical exploration, but the journey is just beginning. There is often a sense of restlessness in the mind, a feeling that they are on the edge of something larger, yet not fully anchored in it. This nakshatra is not easy to understand because it operates within the area of duality and contradictions. The primary symbol, the two front legs of a funeral cot, represents the journey into death and rebirth, both metaphorically and literally. The idea of endings and departures is strong here. These individuals are often fascinated by what lies beyond life, afterlife, reincarnation, spirits, and the metaphysical dimensions of existence. For those with moon in this nakshatra, thoughts about mortality, impermanence, and deeper existential truths are natural companions to their mental process. Some may even have dreams or visions connected to death, or a persistent intuitive awareness of unseen realms. Another powerful symbol of Purvabhadrapada is two faces, which suggests that the person often carries dualities within their personality. The moon, governing the mind and emotional patterns, when placed here, indicates a tendency to compartmentalize emotions or live two emotional lives, one that is shown to the world and another that is buried deep within. These individuals can appear extremely wise, controlled, and spiritual in public, but privately they may be battling dark thoughts, fears, or hidden obsessions. This duality is not necessarily negative, but it requires spiritual maturity and awareness to integrate both aspects of their psyche. Ruled by Jupiter, there's a strong urge to teach, counsel, and guide others, especially in subjects involving spirituality, philosophy, and the occult. People with moon in Purvabhadrapada often become advisors, spiritual teachers, or even reformers in their own way. But the same energy that can uplift can also mislead. If the soul has not matured or evolved enough, the same moon placement may manifest as someone who pretends to be a guru or counselor but lacks true spiritual depth, a double-faced personality who can easily deceive others with charisma cloaked in wisdom. The presence of the two faces symbol means there is always a temptation to manipulate, project illusions, or wear masks. These individuals are often drawn to mystical sciences such as astrology, numerology, occultism, tantra, or metaphysics. The mind, influenced by the moon, seeks answers in the unseen and unexplained. They have a sharp intellect, much like the symbol of two swords, enabling them to cut through illusions and dissect complex ideas with precision. This is the nakshatra of deep analysis and mental transformation. It doesn't settle for superficial answers. These people often pursue their knowledge intensely, striving to master whatever path they choose, and are rarely satisfied until they've dug through the layers of mystery. This spiritual path is not without pain. The moon in Purvabhadrapada may bring psychological turbulence, anxiety, or inner darkness. This is often rooted in past life karma, especially if the person has misused spiritual power previously. Some of these souls are born into this life with residual guilt, fears, or unhealed trauma, which can manifest as irrational fears or a constant state of emotional unrest. They must consciously work through their emotional duality, often through meditation, spiritual practice, or creative expression. In the Aquarius portion of the nakshatra, the person may use their knowledge for serving humanity, reforming systems, or leading collective spiritual movements. They may feel emotionally fulfilled when engaged in humanitarian causes or teaching wisdom that benefits society. In the Pisces portion, their journey becomes more internalized and mystical, and they seek personal union with the divine. They may become more contemplative, drawn to seclusion, or deeply involved in personal spiritual growth. Their emotional satisfaction now comes from inner peace and divine connection, rather than societal validation. These traits are also often mirrored in the mother, as moon represents maternal influence. The mother may have been someone who was deeply spiritual, psychologically complex, or dual-natured, perhaps someone who showed strength and control outwardly but was secretly battling emotional turmoil. In some cases, the mother may have had a significant spiritual influence on the native's life or introduced them to mystical or philosophical concepts early on. Purvabhadrapada also carries associations with leg injuries or standing postures, owing to the deity Aja Ekapada, the one-footed goat. Individuals with moon here might habitually lean on one foot or have some karmic vulnerability related to legs or feet, especially if linked with malefic aspects or transits. Jupiter's rulership ensures that life often presents heavy philosophical or spiritual lessons, pushing the native to confront their darker nature and purify the soul. Overall, moon in Purvabhadrapada suggests a soul that has just begun walking the spiritual path. It's a placement of initiation, not completion. These individuals may feel an initial burst of spiritual insight or awakening but must avoid the illusion that enlightenment has been reached. The journey is still long and requires detachment from ego, consistent practice, and humility. When used wisely, this nakshatra gives the ability to channel darkness into light, become a guide for others, and serve the world through higher knowledge and spiritual wisdom. Yet, the same energy, when misused or misunderstood, can lead to manipulation, duality, and spiritual delusion. The challenge lies in whether the individual continues the path of inner purification or gets stuck in the illusion of enlightenment. As always, other chart factors like house placement, conjunctions, aspects, and dashas must be considered to understand the full manifestation of moon in Purvabhadrapada. When the moon is placed in Uttarabhadrapada nakshatra, the emotional core of the person begins to operate at a deeply spiritual and mystical frequency. This nakshatra, extending from 3 degrees 20 minutes to 16 degrees 40 minutes in Pisces, marks a significant turning point in the soul's journey, a movement from spiritual initiation to the actual experience of liberation or moksha. Governed by Saturn and situated fully in the Pisces sign, ruled by Jupiter, Uttara Bhadrapada fuses the depth of spiritual yearning with the stability and discipline needed to follow through with it. A person born with moon here often carries a calm and composed demeanor, yet internally they are deeply engaged in pursuits far beyond the material plane. The symbol of this nakshatra, the back legs of a funeral cot, is not merely about physical death, but a metaphor for the departure from material consciousness into higher spiritual planes. The placement of the moon here indicates a person whose mind is naturally inclined towards contemplating the afterlife, the unseen dimensions, or the ultimate truth beyond death. This nakshatra, being the natural continuation of Purva Bhadrapada, suggests that such a soul has already tasted the initial stages of spiritual realization and is now moving toward actual transformation. Their emotional fulfillment lies not in achievements of the world, but in the experience of truth, peace, and liberation. The secondary symbol of the coiled serpent at the bottom of the ocean adds an even deeper mystical layer to this placement. The serpent, symbolizing the dormant Kundalini energy, reflects an emotional nature that is hidden, potent, and capable of awakening immense power. When the moon, which governs the mind and emotions, rests in this domain, the person may go through phases where they feel intense inner stirrings, like waves of energy, inspiration, or sudden intuitive insights. For many, this can manifest as a desire to meditate, practice breath control, or explore spiritual disciplines that activate these latent energies. These people often exhibit a calm exterior and seem emotionally stable, but within, their minds are engaged in profound metaphysical contemplation. Unlike the fiery intensity of Purva Bhadrapada, individuals with moon in Uttara Bhadrapada tend to handle life's turmoil with remarkable grace. Even when faced with catastrophes or personal losses, they exhibit a rare spiritual composure. This poise is not superficial. It stems from an inner clarity that life is fleeting and the soul's journey is what truly matters. Their emotional resilience is anchored in the knowledge that all things are temporary, and liberation lies in letting go. The influence of Saturn, as the nakshatra lord, brings in discipline, patience, and a slow but steady approach to spiritual growth. These are not people who chase overnight enlightenment. Instead, they are dedicated seekers, often spending decades refining their inner world, cleansing karmic baggage, and moving toward higher truths. Moon here creates individuals who love solitude, often withdrawing from social chaos to seek peace and silence. They might not be overtly religious or ritualistic, but their connection to the divine is deeply personal and experiential. For them, direct mystical experience outweighs doctrine. Because of their inner calm and depth, Uttara Bhadrapada individuals make excellent counselors and advisors. Their words have weight, and their presence is often soothing to others. People feel safe opening up to them, sensing their non-judgmental and wise approach. Their emotional intelligence and psychic receptivity make them naturally gifted in helping others deal with mental or spiritual crises. Many of them gravitate toward careers in teaching, healing, counseling, or metaphysical guidance. When moon is strong and positively placed here, it gives the person the rare ability to see into the emotional and energetic patterns of others. Like every nakshatra, this one too has its shadows. If the soul is not yet evolved or if the moon is afflicted, then the same spiritual energy can be misused or performed as a facade. The mystical aura around them can become a mask for manipulation, leading to spiritual arrogance or deceit. In such cases, the person may pretend to be enlightened, act as a guru, or lead others astray for personal gain. This deceptive streak arises from the deep duality inherent in the mystical path, between light and shadow, truth and illusion. The danger lies in believing the ego is enlightened when it has merely had a taste of higher realms. The home environment and mother often play a significant role in shaping this spiritual inclination. Moon being the karaka for mother and emotions, its placement here may indicate a mother who was herself deeply spiritual, withdrawn, or emotionally evolved. She might have introduced the native to meditation, metaphysical concepts, or alternative philosophies from a young age. Alternatively, if the moon is afflicted, the mother may have been detached or emotionally unavailable, pushing the child inward early in life and compelling them to find emotional security in the divine rather than in people. These individuals may also have mystical experiences related to dreams and visions. Because of their deep connection to the 12th house energy of Pisces, they can effortlessly drift into altered states of consciousness, sometimes even without formal practice. Their dream life is often vivid and symbolic, offering insights into their karmic path or subconscious mind. If supported by other planetary placements, they can develop healing abilities or intuitive knowledge. When used consciously, this placement of moon gives immense potential for liberation, healing, and spiritual mastery. It demands inner purity, detachment from ego, and consistent practice. Saturn's influence ensures that results come only through time, testing, and perseverance. Yet those who are sincere in their pursuit can become true mystics, people who live in the world but are not of it. Overall, Moon in Uttarapada is not just a placement. It's a soul's calling to walk the path of truth and transcendence. Whether one becomes a guide or a mystic depends on the soul's evolution and life choices. For most, this moon placement marks a life where the soul is gently but persistently pulled toward the final chapters of its karmic journey, towards surrender, stillness, and ultimate liberation. But as always, the full results depend on the house placement, aspects, conjunctions, dasha periods, and the chart as a whole, which must be analyzed to understand the native's unique journey and evolution. When the moon is placed in Revati Nakshatra, the mind operates in its most ethereal, imaginative, and spiritually evolved form. This is the last nakshatra in the zodiacal belt, stretching from 16 degrees 40 minutes to 30 degrees 0 minutes of Pisces, and symbolically represents the final stage of the soul's journey, a culmination of all karmic experiences through the previous nakshatras. With its full placement in Pisces, the sign of surrender, transcendence, and intuition, Revati reflects the mental state of one who is on the brink of spiritual liberation, or at least deeply preoccupied with understanding the soul's final destination. The symbolic representation of two fish swimming in the ocean mirrors the soul's journey in this earthly world, with the surrounding sea representing both the illusion of material reality and the depth of spiritual truth. These individuals often operate with a mind that is fluid, emotional, and dreamy, living between the realms of what is and what could be. Their imagination is vast, and their emotional world is rich, deeply connected with unseen forces, divine impressions, and sometimes, unrealized ideals. Moon in Revati makes a person emotionally oriented towards liberation, not just in a philosophical sense but as a felt inner yearning, a pull towards something higher, purer, and eternal. These individuals are often known for their deep compassion and emotional generosity. There is an inherent kindness in their interactions, a desire to help others, and a tendency to offer forgiveness easily. Just like the ruling deity of this nakshatra, Pushan, who is known to guide lost souls, protect travelers, and aid in transitions, Revati moon individuals often take on the role of guides or caretakers in others' lives. Their nurturing spirit often extends to the vulnerable, children, animals, the underprivileged, and they instinctively gravitate toward acts of service and healing. They may even dedicate their lives to humanitarian or charitable work, particularly that which supports animal welfare, children's causes, or global peace. This placement of the moon also makes the native highly imaginative and intuitive. These are the dreamers of the zodiac. People who can visualize not just creative worlds, but entire dimensions beyond the material plane. They may receive information through vivid dreams, or find that their creativity flows in the form of music, art, poetry, or storytelling. The second symbol of Revati, the drum, connects them to rhythm, sound, and cosmic vibrations. It is not uncommon for Revati moon individuals to have musical talent, particularly an ear for universal rhythm and emotionally evocative sounds. Music, for them, can be a spiritual experience, something that connects them to the divine. The influence of Mercury, the ruling planet of Revati, brings a lightness and quickness to the mind. These individuals may come across as playful, witty, humorous, and communicative. Their ideas can be brilliant, but often colored by emotion and imagination. The blend of Mercury and Pisces can make their intellect intuitive rather than analytical, making them less inclined toward hard logic and more attuned to symbolism, empathy, and feeling-based knowledge. This also opens the doorway for mental escapism. Since their emotional world is deeply tied to fantasy and idealism, they can sometimes retreat into their dreamland, especially when reality becomes too harsh. They may resist being pulled into the material world and struggle to deal with mundane or practical matters. This disconnection from realism can be one of the significant challenges of Moon in Revati. Their tendency to idealize people, situations, or life itself often sets them up for disappointment when the world doesn't align with their internal picture. Criticism, harsh truths, or any attempt to break their dream can evoke strong emotional reactions. Much like the fish in the water who believes the ocean is all there is, they may resist stepping outside their bubble of imagination. Yet, it is in this very contrast, between illusion and truth, that their soul is meant to evolve. The journey of Revati is not to escape reality but to transcend it by integrating the spiritual and the material. Because Revati is associated with safe travels, people with moon here are often blessed with protection during their journeys, especially long-distance or international ones. Many are also naturally drawn to exploring foreign lands, different cultures, and mystical places. Their travels often have a spiritual or humanitarian purpose, not just for pleasure. Pushan's influence ensures that even if they get lost, literally or metaphorically, they often find their way back with the right guidance, timing, or help from unseen forces. Financially, Despite Revati being a moksha-driven nakshatra, the name itself means wealth, and it does not shy away from prosperity. Here, wealth is understood in both material and spiritual terms. These individuals may earn money through creative pursuits, healing professions, or spiritual guidance, but they are less likely to chase money for its own sake. Their financial success is often a byproduct of good karma and emotional purity. At their best, they give generously, and their earnings often go toward meaningful causes rather than self-indulgence. Another distinct aspect of this nakshatra is the emotional influence of the mother or home. Often, Revati moon individuals are raised in environments that are either spiritually inclined or filled with compassion and emotional sensitivity. The mother may have played a nurturing or protective role, or may have introduced them to music, faith, or empathy. Alternatively, if the moon is afflicted, the native might seek healing or protection from emotional neglect through their connection with animals, spiritual teachings, or creative expression. Overall, the moon in Revati signifies a mind that is nearing completion of its karmic cycle, ready to detach from worldly illusions and surrender into something higher. This doesn't mean abandoning the world, but rather learning how to move through it with grace, kindness, and awareness. The finality of this nakshatra doesn't create endings, but prepares the soul for transcendence, an exit not through denial, but through inner fulfillment. The exact nature of how this moon manifests depends heavily on its house placement, conjunctions, aspects, and the running dashas. But in its essence, moon in Revati reveals a heart that longs for unity, a mind that floats in the waters of cosmic rhythm, and a soul that's on the verge of true freedom. It's essential to consider your entire birth chart when applying these general insights to your personal circumstances. If you'd like personalized predictions or have questions about your astrological chart, feel free to reach out. Stay tuned for more astrological updates. If this gave you new insight into your own chart or sparked your curiosity to explore deeper, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be breaking down more astrological layers just like this, from nakshatras to planetary transits and everything in between, to help you decode your story. Until next time, stay aligned, stay aware, and keep shining bright.